but not as hot as it has been, and temperatures towards the north and west, well, mid-20s really for many here. Into Sunday, and we have some cloudy wet weather sweeping its way eastwards. It's not particularly heavy rain or all that persistent, but most of us will see some outbreaks of rain, but there should be some brighter, sunnier weather around as well, and temperatures, well, they're going to be so much more comfortable for many of us than they have been recently, dropping to much closer to average for the time of year. Bye-bye.
Today's outlook: cool, calm and completely horizontal. Boxed Aircon sponsors the weather on GB News.
It's a Great British Giveaway Golden Summer Celebration. Your chance to win 2 fantastic prizes. There's an incredible £60,000 in tax-free cash. Plus, you'll also get your hands on a fine gold bar worth over £5,000. For a chance to win £60,000 in tax-free cash and a real gold bar, text GOLD to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB22 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 21st of August. This is a network giveaway. Entries will be pulled. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
At the stroke of midnight, the news doesn't stop, and neither do we.
Day in, day out. Forget stuffy late night TV shows. We're giving you a front row ticket to the centre of the political universe.
Because breaking news doesn't wait for the morning.
And neither do we. Join us for one of the most controversial and volatile times of politics in human history.
A very big story.
Big story over here.
You won't get this anywhere else. The Late Show live at midnight, every night.
Only on GB News.
Some people enjoy lazy Sunday mornings, but not me.
What's the truth of the matter?
So that's a very live question.
Would you support him if he waters down these plans?
Before the spin sets in, I'll be getting to the truth.
This is personal.
No soft questions, no easy answers.
It's one thing if the state has rules in this country. It's another thing whether the police and others actually police them.
Setting the agenda and holding those in power to account.
You can't really blame her if the system is set up this way. You will not want to miss it, trust me.
The Camilla Tominey Show, Sundays from 9:30, only on GB News.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact is Trump made a good start. No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Breaking news, live updates, stories that matter.
From the heart of the GB newsroom to every corner of Britain, with our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
GB News bulletins are there to deliver the latest news that matters to you.
Bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome along to Patrick Christys Tonight, late edition, all of tomorrow's newspaper front pages for you and breaking right now.
This is particularly true of Article 8, the right to a family life. The courts have adopted an ever-expanding interpretation of this right, and as a result, many people have been allowed to come to this country when they would otherwise have had no right to. And we have been unable to remove others when the case for doing so seems overwhelming.
Yes, so it's a GB News exclusive this. The Home Office analysis reveals that the ECHR's right to a family life is just being massively abused by migrants to avoid deportation, and they say they're going to clamp down on that, but...
We've allowed them to demonise migrants and refugees, to cast them as the enemy, and that was wrong. It was wrong not to be brave and not to make the positive case for migration, because there is one.
Well, there's some other news coming out tonight, which is The Guardian's front page. Pressure on Mahmood over immigration bill, and it looks a bit like those backbenchers in the Labour Party might actually be winning on some things. Shabana Mahmood is also introducing a safe and legal route in a Ukrainian-style scheme to potentially bring thousands more refugees to the UK, and there is even more.
We will soon increase the time in which someone must have lived in this country to earn indefinite leave to remain from 5 years to 10.
Shabana Mahmood's legal migration crackdown could be softened. It's made the front of the Daily Mail. Apparently, it's to try to pander to Andy Burnham. Tens of thousands of care workers, for example, could be being made exempt from indefinite leave to remain reforms. And you might remember, of course, that it kicked off between Mike Tapp and Shabana Mahmood earlier on. And so that would, I think, at face value anyway, be a victory for Mike Tapp in all of this. Speaking, though, of Andy Burnham.
I swear by Almighty God that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to His Majesty King Charles.
Well, get a load of this. The Burnham bounce appears to be here, for now at least. Labour leapfrogs reform with a new leader. So you can see that Labour inches ahead of reform in the polls if Andy Burnham is the leader. That is what the weekend is leading with tomorrow. And
we're 10 years on now, and what happened ultimately, we delivered Brexit, and we delivered what it was a hard Brexit. It was pretty hard.
Well, former Prime Minister Sir John Major has called for the UK to rejoin the single market. The Independent leads with the big picture of him there, and, of course, the exclusive article that they've got. And finally, another exclusive for GB News here. It's a poll that has revealed that Britain's back banning the Muslim Brotherhood by more than 5 to 1.
All across the Middle East, countries have banned and prescribed the Muslim Brotherhood as a dangerous organisation. We will do the very same.
Well, loads at play tonight, isn't there? Let me just whiz you through all of Saturday's newspaper front pages. The Guardian, pressure on Mahmood over immigration bill, calls to try to soften it in the way that would allow more people to have indefinite leave to remain. The Daily Mail, migration crackdown is softened for Burnham. So there you go. The Telegraph, Burnham must call an election, says Case, who is the former Cabinet Secretary. Last 5 Prime Ministers have not been honest with the public, says the former Cabinet Secretary. Burnham must call an election. They also have a story on the Daily Telegraph, the same paper. Sarah Ferguson visited Jeffrey Epstein twice whilst he was in prison, which is just weird, isn't it? She visited the convicted paedophile twice whilst he was in prison. I mean, it's just nuts, isn't it? What was going on there? And also, Poland is telling citizens to cash in on UK welfare. The weekend. The Burnham bounce. This is the polling that the have got here. They have it on with Andy Burnham as Labour leader. Labour on 27%. Sorry, the weekend. Labour on 27%. Reform on 26%. The Tories on 19%. So they say that that's the Burnham bounce for you. If we have a look at the Independent, they go for Burnham must rejoin the single market within 5 years. Oh, sorry, not Burnham, Britain, although I suppose the same thing, isn't it, really, in a way? Britain must rejoin the single market within 5 years, says Sir John Major. The Daily Express, our freedoms are at risk. Dame Priti Patel warns that Labour has never accepted the outcome of the Brexit vote. The Sun, Prince Harry is going to visit Britain next month alongside apparently Meghan Markle and, of course, their children. And apparently they want to take their children to Princess Diana's grave. And the Mirror, they go for the Big Apple Corps. Army of 30,000 fans hit New York. I'm assuming this is an England football fan story. Yes, it is. England football fans, 30,000 of them hit in New York. £400 million boost to UK shops and pubs as well as a result of World Cup fever. So that's that. Right, OK. Let's get stuck into the variety of different immigration stories that are spread across the front pages for tomorrow. We do have that exclusive for you, which is from the Home Office. So Look, they're all... everything I'm about to say to you now is a different snippet of the same bigger picture. So the Home Office has said, they've doubled down on the fact that they think that there is widespread abuse of human rights laws under Article 8 of the European Convention on Human Rights, the right to a family life. Now, it was originally written to stop the state from just tearing apart genuine families from genuine refugees, so it might have initially been quite well-intentioned. However, now you are seeing widespread abuse, and it's being abused on both sides. So either people wanting to bring family members over, so they get to settle in the UK, they bring the family members over, or people that we're looking to deport who say, there's that infamous chicken nuggets case, isn't there? And there's loads of things like this. You know, there's a case of the paedophile who we couldn't deport because, you know, he had to look after his daughter, you know, all of that stuff. So this is what the government is trying to clamp down on, and they want to basically say that change the way it's being interpreted by the courts. However, there is some more breaking news. Part of these reforms will also include a safe and legal route in a Ukrainian-style asylum scheme to bring thousands more migrants, asylum seekers, to the UK. The Home Secretary announced moments ago, my reforms will save the asylum system for a generation. I will open new legal routes for genuine refugees while closing loopholes that have been too often abused. My goal is simple, to ensure we have an asylum system, not just today, but for the coming generations. So that's the first bit of it. I think if we could just bring up the Daily Mail's front page, I'll put this to my panel. So first things first, the right to a family life, for me, it's quite nice to hear that Shabana Mahmood is recognising that is being abused.
Well, it's clear, it's undeniable that it's being abused. We know that, we've all got eyes and ears. Shabana Mahmood likes to talk tough. I still haven't seen the action where she's some, you know, ruthless MP against immigration. What worries me now is, as the Daily Mail says, migration crackdown is softened for Burnham. How much more soft can we get in this country? We're being abused left, right and centre. It's OK her to say, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, but we never see it. We never see the action. We never see the figures. And what worries me is that Andy Burnham has been very vocal in the past about how he embraces immigration. I think things are going to get worse. I really do. And for those at home that think, oh, how can it get any worse? I really believe the numbers are going to swell under Andy Burnham, because I do not believe he's got the conviction to oversee mass deportations or anything like this.
Well, he did float the idea of allowing asylum seekers to work whilst they were awaiting approval, which...
Is it a big beacon to the world to say, come here and get some free money?
I would view it that way, yeah. But yeah, Chloe, your thoughts on the idea that Article 8 is being abused, so rights to family life, but also this Ukrainian-style scheme for more people.
Yes, I mean, the Home Office and Shabana Mahmood, at least, have been saying for a significant amount of time, and Yvette Cooper was as well, Article 8 is being abused and that they're going to reform it. But, you know, I agree with Adam that, you know, we'll believe it when we see it. I know that changing the law is a long and complicated process, so I appreciate that isn't something you can do at the snap of the fingers. But I think when it comes to everything that they say with regards to immigration, nobody believes that it's actually going to happen. And I wouldn't be surprised if it is the case that Shabana Mahmood, if she does keep her job as Home Secretary under Burnham, if she does soften her tone, because her current talking tough approach is just winning nobody. Because what's happening is, just as Adam said, most of us on the right who, you know, Shabana Mahmood is thinking maybe we can get some voters back who have switched to reform. Her tough talk isn't working because everyone's saying, oh, you're all the talk and none of the walk, so we don't believe you. Why would we not just vote for Nigel Farage instead, who we think is actually going to follow through? Meanwhile, all the people on the left, soft left, are getting completely disillusioned with her, saying, oh, she's reform light, or she's worse than reform. So both sides, both left and right, are turning against her. So maybe if she goes for a more soft left approach, it will actually be make her slightly more popular.
Let's remember that reform have promised to leave the ECHR. We won't have this problem if we leave.
Well, there's lots of others. The concern for me with this, Barry, would be that there's a chance that we end up with the kind of worst of both worlds.
Well, look, I would just say that this is breaking news and it's something that we'll need to look very carefully at. But my take on this is that it's really good that we're going to redefine what the courts are able to do around Article 8. I think that's positive. because it has been abused, and I've seen that in my own constituency and made representations on the basis of that. But the other thing I would say is it does make a lot of sense to try and process people before they get to this country, and providing those safe and legal routes and processing them whilst they're still abroad is much better than allowing them to be in the hands of the criminals and coming here on small boats illegally. Okay. Now, the other thing, though, that you said was that they're going to allow lots more people to stay, to get a settlement here. Now, my view is that those people who came here and abided by the rules, they worked, they got their visa, it was understood that in 5 years' time, if they did what they said, they would be able to have settled status in this country. The proposal was to make that 10 years. My view is that it's not settled status that needs changed, it's the rights of citizenship that needs changed. At the moment, the only right you have as a citizen, as opposed to somebody with indefinite leave to remain, is to have a blue passport and to vote in a general election, right? Now, that's exactly my point.
Right.
I think that actually a lot of the benefits that people get from, at the moment, being on indefinite leave to remain should be reserved for citizens. I think it should be a really big thing to be a citizen of this country, and there should be rights and benefits that go with that people who simply have the right to stay here, to live, work, contribute to the economy.
Yes.
I want all of that.
Barry's talking sensible.
But my understanding with this, we might as well bring up the Guardian's front page as well, because it's a version of the same thing. Now, but my understanding with this, and I want it to be corrected, is that because there was this big controversy earlier on, wasn't there? Mike Tapp and Shabana Mahmood wanted to sack him, Starmer refused to sack him, and it all got a bit weird. She was going to stop him having access to documents in the Home Office and everything. Anyway, is that what Mike Tapp is actually saying is that anyone who's come here as a care worker and should be exempt from Shabana Mahmood's longer period of having to wait for indefinite leave to remain, which could mean that if she rose back on that, which it looks, the noises are tonight that she's softened on it, that you could come here as a care worker for 5 years, bring a couple of family members over, and then after 5 years you get indefinite leave to remain, and then you could claim benefits. So that's the bit she needs to. But you think she should? She should stop that?
At the moment, that is what the situation is. It's not about what might happen. That is the situation. But the point I would make, Patrick, is this. We as a country held out that, and we said, these are the rules, obey the rules, and that's what you get. Now, I don't want us to welch on the deal that we made with those people, but what I do want us to do is to rethink actually what the rights of citizenship are. And it seems to me that actually the balance at the moment is wrong, and actually more rights should be for British citizens. By all means, give people the right to live here, to work here indefinitely, contribute to society, but certain benefits, not all of them, but certain benefits should be reserved for citizens.
What do you reckon, Adam, looking at these questions?
I just think, look, if I go to America, say I sold up and went there and I lost everything, if I couldn't provide for my family, I'm probably going to be deported. I'm not going to start getting benefits from America, or if I went to Spain.
Singapore.
No, I just think this country is a soft touch, and the world knows that. They know that they can come here on a work visa, maybe work a few years, and then suddenly they're going to get the rest of their lives paid for. And I think that is the mindset of the world. We are looked at as a free ride, and this is what the MPs and our politicians need to realise. But we looked at a soft touch.
This was specifically designed to counter the Boris wave.
Sure.
And
the Boris wave, basically, what was it? It was 40,000 vacancies identified in the care sector, 660,000 people given those visas. That was stupid. Okay, the Tories did that.
4 million people in total.
But in terms of Sorry, derailed me. I can't remember what Adam's point was. No.
Okay, okay, we're a bit of a soft touch, basically.
Yeah.
Was the thing. But,
yeah.
I mean, we shouldn't even be.
But sorry, can I just say the evidence? The evidence is that the people who have come and worked here for 5 years don't then say, oh, I don't want to work anymore. What they do is they go on working. They want to do well for their families.
What about their dependents and everyone that comes over with them on student visas and things like that? Barry, it's undeniable that our immigration system has been abused over the last 5 years.
I think it's mad that we even
simply giving the statistics around the people who came under those conditions to get 5 years of ILR. They go on and they keep working and they keep contributing to our society. They are legal. They came here legally. They've always operated legally.
They shouldn't be British citizens, though. As you say, they should not become.
I just think it's mad. It's one thing being given a visa to go work in a country where you're going to go contribute and pay your taxes, but I just think it's mad that anyone can move to a country and just be handed a load of benefits. Like, if I moved to any other country, I would not expect a penny. Even if I was homeless, I would not expect them to put a roof over my head, and I think that's just common sense. The fact that we're still having to have this debate, I think, is bonkers. Everyone should be on board. It's just intuition.
And if you're deported, you know, that country is not going to be called racist. But because a lot of the people, and a lot, I mean, maybe millions that have come to this country have brown or black skin, if we dare to deport them, we're labelled Nazis, we're labelled racist. But it isn't the case if someone like me or you went to another white country and they deported us.
It's interesting, actually, on that point.
It's the left like to label us and stop us.
Because if we just show the Daily Telegraph, we'll talk about this a bit later, but it's relevant, because the Daily Telegraph front page has a story about the Polish government has told its citizens to cash in on British benefits before returning home. Advice published, which is a Polish government website for citizens living abroad who wish to return home, says when leaving the UK it's worth considering whether you are eligible for job seekers allowance. Post-Brexit arrangements allow European Union citizens who acquired settled status before December 2020 to transfer some benefit payments abroad when they move to an EU country for up to 3 months. It means those returning to Europe, in this case Poland, could claim hundreds of pounds from the British taxpayer to support their job hunt in Poland. So it's stories like that about British taxpayers' money going around to things like this that all feeds into this idea of reform.
There was a group of Bulgarians that managed to take millions out of this country while living in Bulgaria in benefits, and they scammed the system. I think we should also stop anyone that has been born abroad and is here, a foreigner, sending their benefits back home, because that's money that is just leaving the country. I think there should be a block on that. And that's what a lot of people do. They come here, they get benefits and send it back to the country.
It turned out we were paying benefits to Salman Abidi's mum, and Salman Abidi is the Manchester Arena bomber, and his mum had moved back to Libya, I believe, and then it was only a few years later that we realised that we'd actually been paying her benefits for a period of time. So look, anyway, Shabana Mahmoodi's trying to reform it. How far she goes, we'll have to wait and see. There's some strong stuff in there as far as I'm concerned, some stuff that's sort of, you know, we'll have to wait and see how it pans out. Anyway, I think Barry is going to probably want to talk about this one when we come back.
I swear by Almighty God that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to His Majesty King Charles.
Is it the Burnham bounce, the Weekend? Labour lead by Andy Burnham taking over in an opinion poll there. Just slightly temporary. It's a 1-point lead over Reform, and it's quite hypothetical. But anyway, there we are. So we can bring you that and go into the minutiae of what Andy Burnham's leadership would actually mean for the Labour Party, and whether or not he will or should call a snap general election. The former Cabinet Secretary certainly thinks so. That's next.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pearce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
I've been in Westminster for a long time. But I know that though power may be here, its effect on people's lives is across the whole of the country. We may be where rules are made, but it's where they're implemented that matters. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for forthright and frank discussion on where Britain has come from, where it's going, and where it will end up. That's State of the Nation, Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Vox Populi, Vox Dei.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
5 hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates, 5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5. You got me good there. Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show.
It's not a bad brand.
Yeah. Uncensored.
Very, very racist tonight.
On the unpredictable.
What does she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
Breaking news, live updates, stories that matter.
From the heart of the GB newsroom to every corner of Britain, with our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
GB News bulletins are there to deliver the latest news that matters to you.
Bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
OK, welcome back to Late Edition. So, quite a big story, this, on the front of the Weekend. They go for the Burnham bounce. Labour leapfrogs reform with a new leader. They put 27% is what Labour would be on, compared to Reform's 26%. Labour, led by Andy Burnham, would nudge ahead of Reform UK if a general election were held now, they say. Pollsters see a clear Burnham bounce, but the margin is wafer thin and would, interestingly, fall 100 seats short of a Commons majority. Now, we can keep this paper on the screen, but it's interesting because the Daily Telegraph have gone for Burnham must call an election, says Simon Case, who's the former Cabinet Secretary. He must be honest with the public and call an early election or risk the same fate as the past 5 Prime Ministers. There is talk as well this evening of a Lib Dem and Labour pact, which could be interesting. So if you add all these 3 things together, you've got a bit of a Burnham bounce, Labour leading in the polls by 1%. All right, if you believe that, fine, but that's what they're saying. Shy of a Commons majority, so not a Commons majority. Calls for an early snap election, the potential with a Labour-Lib Dem pact, and I've been told, I won't name the source, I've been told that the Green Party would consider a pact with Labour if voting reform was in Andy Burnham's manifesto. I'm not exactly sure what type of voting reform that would take. I think PR
not
is...
voting
you
for
mean
Reform
voting
Party.
for...
Sorry,
voting for a reform of the electoral
reform
system.
Of the electoral, sorry, obviously, no, a reform to, so a removal away from first past the post and towards something like PR, for example. So what we are seeing here, I think, is the first implantation of a serious notion of a mass left-wing tactical vote, and this should be, you know, a big warning to people that this is going to happen. I think.
Look, I think they've got a bit of a lead here. Oh, sorry.
No, I'll go for you, but apparently you're smirking at me. But go on.
They've got a bit of a lead here, but it is kind of normal that when a new Prime Minister comes in that they have a bit of a honeymoon period. Starmer was the exception to that, in that he fell off the cliff pretty quickly as the whole Lord Ali saga came out pretty much straight as the moment he walked in the door. But it's quite normal to have a bit of a honeymoon period until you realise, and the public realises, how bad they are. So Burnham can promise the world, pretend that money grows on trees, kind of like Labour did before the last general election, and people might think, oh, he's great, look at him, he's got so much more personality than Starmer. As soon as he comes in, he's going to realise, oh, no, there's no money, I can't do any of the things I said. People will call him a liar. He'll start to go down in the polls. I think there's a good chance that he'll be... it will harm reform to some degree, Burnham being there instead of Starmer, absolutely. But I think the idea that Burnham's going to be able to just win a general election as long as he's got the help of the Lib Dems, I think it's going to be a lot harder than that.
Go on, then we'll get Barry's expert insider info on this.
There's a lot of factors here. Chloe's right there that Burnham is anyone but Starmer, and we see that in their by-election. Even Reform voters, I'm told, voted, because they thought that it would get Starmer out, so they voted Labour. They voted for Andy Burnham. A national poll is a lot different. Look, this is one poll. It's close. I just hope that people that are thinking of voting Conservative at the next general election realise that Kemi Badenoch might be sounding strong and looking impressive right now. She will never be able to take us out of the ECHR. Reform will take us out. The Conservatives are an establishment party. They're full of wet. Most of their MPs should be Lib Dems, really. Look, it just worries me, this tactical voting, because they're organised and the right isn't. But I just hope when it comes to it, when it's now Labour or Reform, that people hold their nose, even if they're not fans of Reform, and they vote that. Because if we go left again at the next election, I think things like immigration, there's no coming back from another left-wing government of this country. I think we fall hard.
But let's get Barry on this. So, I mean, do you think that Burnham will call an early election? Yeah.
So, the honest answer is I don't know. I can see that there is no constitutional reason why he should, because the Prime Minister is not elected by the country. The Prime Minister is the leader of whichever who can command a majority in the House of Commons.
Your party's changing its tune there, Barry.
Look, and Adam, I entirely get it. Lots of Labour politicians, every time the Tories changed the Prime Minister, said, oh, we should have a general election, OK?
Most.
And you know that's politics. But when they were saying it, everybody knew it wasn't required by the Constitution, OK? So I don't think that's the issue. I think what Andy Burnham, assuming it is him, and it pretty much looks like we can assume that it is him, will come in and he'll want to do stuff before he calls the general election. Now, he may well call it before 2029, but I think he'll want to show the public that he can get big things done. Now, what does that mean? I think it means that he'll want to look at the disaster that is Thames Water, right? The government has been far too timid over Thames Water. It's not going to polluting.
Barry.
I actually yesterday I was kayaking and people were talking. Oh, should we go for a swim after this because it's so warm? And I was put off it when a dead rat the size of a cat, literally came right next to me, just lying on its back, dead, and I was like, oh, I'm never swimming in here again.
With also other things like getting the poo out of Lake Windermere and things like that.
No,
like
exactly.
The whole thing.
That's right. Look, I think
win a general election.
Well, Adam, I think there are big things that people want to get done, OK? And actually, one of the most popular policies with the public is taking water back into public ownership.
I've never heard one person say that to me. That would.
Just go and read the polls.
I think a lot of people across the spectrum are in favour of it. But the question is he actually going to be able to do it? 'Cause, I mean, I've seen some estimates saying it's going to cost potentially $100 billion to nationalise the utilities. So yes, Burnham may want to do big things. Starmer and his MPs, they claimed that they wanted change and they were going to do all these big things when they came in, but they came in, they realised money doesn't grow on trees.
If I can have a little bit of a shot, OK, what I would say to that is that the 100 billion figure is complete nonsense because actually, if you look at Thames Water have got a bill for repairs, the repairs they should have done that people have been paying for, that is about 22 billion, and they've extracted in terms of dividend to shareholders and in paying off debt interest, 18 billion, right? So the company has already been written down. So if you look at the Canadian pension fund, if you look at the university's pension fund in this country, they've written down their holdings in Thames Water to zero, and we're talking about, you know, pension funds that had £1 billion almost in their pension funds. They've written it off, right? So I think what you've got to look at, the courts say that they have to be given appropriate value, that is fair value, and actually this company is insolvent. That's the reality of it. They cannot pay their debts and they're failing on their licence conditions. But, you know, I don't want to get on a thing simply about Thames Water. We're talking about what a new incoming Labour Prime Minister would do. And I think they want to show the country that they can make big change.
Can I bring in this about the Times? I put this to you. So Andy Burnham's number 10 administration should prepare for a Labour-Liberal coalition after the next election. People close to Burnham told the Times that Labour must be ready for a hung parliament, even if it gets a polling boost after replacing Keir Starmer. I think that, again, the left votes tactically, or has done in the past, in a way that the right hasn't. And if you look at this polling now, Tories on 19%, Reform on 26%, you know, if you add that together, really, they certainly smash Labour. I mean, it gets a bit murky when you start in the Greens. And
I don't think you can say the right don't vote tactically. What happened in the previous by-election, you know, the Tory vote was, well, they lost their deposit, didn't they?
I don't think that was tactical.
No, I don't think that was tactical.
Oh, you think they just won it outright?
No.
What do you mean, sorry?
Well, look, what I'm saying...
I think the Tories
is just evaporated. Their support was evaporated.
Oh, OK. So when it's the right wing that coalesces vote around...
websites and groups that organise your tactical debate. You've got Carol Vorderman that thinks she actually, you know...
So when it's the right wing that vote tactically, it's just people wanting to vote for reform.
Can I just...
But when it's the left wing...
No, sorry, I want to be really clear on this, right? The left actually talk about it, right? They actually have...
And you think the right don't?
No, they don't.
I don't think the right... Look, if
the Greens... you know, pretty much didn't stand down, but they just didn't campaign at all. They did do that tactical approach in Makerfield, and it clearly paid off for the left. But meanwhile, you had a load of people in Makerfield saying that they were going to vote for Restore, even though Restore were never going to win. And, you know, although in the end he had a bigger majority than the polling did at the suggested at the start of the campaign. We did have a point where the polling looked like Andy Burnham was going to win simply because the vote on the right was split, enough percentage going to Restore, you know, to hand.
But in the end, he got 54.8%, which was actually any politician in Parliament at the moment would be very happy to get...
There's going to be things this summer in autumn that Burnham cannot control. I hope it doesn't happen, but I can foresee a summer of unrest on the streets of Britain due to asylum seekers and due to immigration. And I think we see how that affected Keir Starmer in his early tenure. He dealt with it wrong. He called us all far right, so there are going to be big events that affect Andy Burnham's popularity. I'm still not convinced that Labour will be ahead in the polls by
When you say big events, what do you mean?
Well, I think it means like protests and disorder and things like that we've seen the previous, I think, 2 or 3 summers now, isn't it? I think, but anyway. The Sun is reporting that Prince Harry will take his children to visit Princess Diana's grave on their UK visit. Apparently Meghan Markle is coming with them as well, probably staying, well, there was rumoured at one point in Buckingham Palace, but it looks like that's probably not going to happen now, is it? But also, there's some big news about Sarah Ferguson visiting Jeffrey Epstein in prison when he was there for child sex offences. All very weird, that's what it is.
Hello again. Very good evening to you. I'm back with your GB News weather update coming to you from the Met Office. We still have an extreme heat warning out, an amber one across some eastern parts of England through Saturday. Whilst there is fresher air coming in, some of that residual heat is trapped across some eastern parts, so still uncomfortably hot and humid here. Further north and west, a big talking point, the thunderstorms. A lot of the ones over northern England, Northern Ireland, they're clearing through at the moment, but across parts of Scotland, the thundery risk continues into the early hours of tomorrow morning, and also we will then see a few showers developing in parts of the southeast. A lot of dry weather in between across the bulk of England and Wales. Still warm and humid towards eastern parts, but further north and west a bit fresher, a bit more comfortable than some recent nights perhaps. Then into tomorrow morning, well, a cloudy start across much of Scotland. A bit of sunshine perhaps towards the northeast, but yes, generally quite grey. There will be some rain around, but it's not looking as heavy or as thundery as what we're seeing at the moment and overnight. Also across Northern Ireland, bit of cloud, bit of rain towards the west in particular, and down the western side of England and also Wales. Bit of cloud here, some rain pushing through at times, but it's not a total washout by any means. Across more central eastern parts of England, it's a brighter, sunnier start to the day, and really through the day itself, we have a northwest-southeast split, staying quite cloudy, outbreaks of rain, a fresher breeze towards the northwest, drier and sunnier towards the southeast, but some showers pushing into some southeastern parts later. These could turn heavy and thundery. Still hot in the east, but not as hot as it has been, and temperatures towards the north and west, well, mid-20s really for many here. Into Sunday, and we have some cloudy wet weather sweeping its way eastwards. It's not particularly heavy rain or all that persistent, but most of us will see some outbreaks of rain, but there should be some brighter, sunnier weather around as well, and temperatures, well, they're going to be so much more comfortable for many of us than they have been recently, dropping to much closer to average for the time of year. Bye-bye.
From cold mornings
to warm family brunches,
from football to tennis, in the car,
in the kitchen,
GB News Breakfast is there with the stories you need and the conversations that matter.
Anyway, let's talk business.
Well, it has been a historic night in British politics.
It's astonishing, isn't it?
We're here again
to start your day just right. GB News Breakfast.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Dubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
OK, welcome back. Two royal stories here. The Sun's front page is Harry to take kids to Di grave, which is Princess Diana's grave. It's coming with Meghan Markle. They're due to arrive next month, I believe. So they're leading with that. The Daily Telegraph has got a different royal, so if you call it royal, I suppose. Anyway, royal-related story. Sarah Ferguson, the ex-wife of Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor, visited Jeffrey Epstein twice whilst he was in prison. So I think we should probably deal with that one first. The former Duchess of York met the convicted paedophile at the Palm Beach office of the fake company he invented to secure work release whilst in jail. She also planned to meet him a third time at the headquarters of the bogus firm, the Florida Science Foundation, but her travel plans fell through at the last minute. Lord Mandelson also phoned Epstein at the office and video called him there on one occasion while he was staying in the financier's New York mansion. So Sarah Ferguson visited Jeffrey Epstein twice at his office for a bogus firm he set up whilst imprisoned on a child sex offence. Right, it's all very weird.
I think anyone that stays friends with or is close to a convicted paedophile needs to be looked at themselves. I think their morals need to be brought into question. I couldn't be in the same room as a paedophile, let alone stay friends with one. So for me, she's done in the public. I don't think the public want anything to do with her, and she should feel ashamed at her behaviour, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, quite. Sorry, we're just going to go stateside quickly for Ben Leo, because he's got his show up next, midnight until 3 a.m, The Late Show Live. And Ben, I believe you are touching on this as well, aren't you?
Yeah, hi Patrick. We've got Poppy Wood, the US correspondent from The Telegraph, who is responsible for this story. She's in the studio tonight to explain it all. But long story short, again, I'm kind of like you. I don't really know what to make of it because we know by now, being very generous, that Sarah Ferguson has questionable judgment. But Jeffrey Epstein set up a fake company in the wake of his 2008 conviction. It was a very light conviction which allowed him to leave prison to go to work. And he set up this fake company in, I think it was Miami. He set up a fake office as well. And Sarah Ferguson, on 2 occasions, she tried for a 3rd time, but her travel plans fell through. She travelled to Epstein's office trying to rally him to finance some women's organisation she was setting up to help needy women. One email sent on the 12th of May 2009 says, "Dear Jeffrey, I'm coming into Palm Beach to see you on Wednesday. I land at 9:30 a.m. Can your brilliant driver Yanush pick me up? Bring me to you, the great one, and then take me to Miami, please, with roses on top. Love me." So in that one email there's many others. She's calling Jeffrey Epstein the great one, and this was after, of course, his initial conviction in 2008. So, look, we know Sarah Ferguson. I don't even know what she's doing anymore. She's completely disgraced. Her judgment, as I said, being very generous, is questionable, and it's indicative of Prince Andrew, or Andrew Mountbatten Windsor as he's now known, of his judgment, his behaviour, and you've got Fergie in the background as well. Is it any surprise that Andrew ended up where he did when he had Fergie in tow, behaving as she did as well?
Why? I believe that you're also going to be joined this evening by former US film and music video director Robbie Starbuck. Is that right?
Yeah, Robbie Starbuck's on the show talking about the Henry Novak story, the new body cam footage that's been released today. The Henry Novak story is a story that has really ignited America, as it has Great Britain, because they see what's happening in the UK. They see two-tier policing, they see the influx of migrants, and they want us to sort our stuff out. I was going to say something else. They want us to get our mojo back and become the great country that we were, and they can see what's happening to us in real time. Actually, I can give you that perspective as well. When you're looking at things from across the pond, you have a different perspective. You have a bird's eye view of just how mad things are getting. You wake up every day and you see what's happening on X, on the news, on GB News, and you just think, goodness me, we are in a right pickle. So Robbie Starbuck is on the show as well, Patrick.
Ben, look, thank you very, very much. Going to be a fantastic show. Ben Leo there, Late Show Live, midnight until 3 a.m, so make sure that you keep it GB News. I'm looking for it. I can't see a comment here from Sarah Ferguson as about why she visited Jeffrey Epstein, but I mean, obviously it's terrible.
I mean, I just want to point out that, we talk about the criminal justice system in this country and its problems. My God.
Yeah.
At least we're not allowing a convicted paedophile to set up an office where he can be for 12 hours a day outside of prison and be visited by all and sundry who call him the great one, including his own sex therapist.
Yeah,
Sorry, excuse me, but America's pointing fingers at us.
Well,
I want to point fingers at them. Say, what the hell do you think you're playing?
It's Pablo Escobar-esque, this, isn't it? Where they let him build his own prison, which was a mansion, and more than a mansion, and do all sorts there, really. But anyway, go on.
Yeah, I mean, we think it's crazy here in the UK that they get things like TV to watch in prison. But this guy, having committed the most unthinkable of crimes, is given 12 hours a day freedom to go work at his Florida Science Foundation. I'm sorry, but who on earth thought that was real? And what's also shocking here is, yes, this is alleged, to be clear, but it says that Epstein's victims have now been saying that whilst he was being given that 12 hours release from prison and going and working at this fake company, that in the office for this fake company, that he was abusing them. So he's already being convicted. And now, as I said, it's alleged. None of this is...
Well, but yeah. It makes you wonder if he had something over certain officials maybe in that area. He had a lot of dirt on a lot of very powerful...
That was his thing, wasn't it? That was his thing. That was his thing, and they all wandered into it, didn't they? They loaded them, they just wandered into it. But anyway, right, OK, so we'd bring that to your attention. Coming up in just a moment's time, we're going to be discussing the sentencing over the Manchester airport incident, where Mohammed Fahir Amaz has today been jailed for 3.5 years after attacking 2 female police officers and a member of the public at that incident at Manchester Airport. That's next.
I forecast a perfect holiday in the sun.
Weather looking good then?
For sure, and no worries about our travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Looking ahead to the weekend, and the historic heat across some parts of Europe will continue. Over more southern areas, it's not as exceptionally hot here, but nonetheless, it will feel pretty hot with all the sunshine around. Worth bearing in mind, we have high humidity as well, and with the hot and sunny weather, that will allow for a few showers to develop, and if they do, they could turn heavy and also thundery. But generally, the theme is for lots of dry, sunny weather to come as we go through into next week.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
And it's Father's Day. I don't know if my dad's up yet. If you are, happy Father's Day.
He's already texted me.
Is he?
He's tuning in.
Mr. Reaper, good morning to
yes.
you.
Sunday, well, speaking of Sunday lunches, he'll be having a roast pork joint later, courtesy of myself.
Good, good.
Cards and gifts are a big part of the day, of course, but it's also important to remember that there is more to it than that.
Yeah, because it's not just about one day, is it? Actually, it's like, what do dads do? And healthy fathers, a healthy sort of father-son, father-daughter relationship builds strong families, builds strong communities and helps build a strong country, actually.
Well, that is why mentoring the next generation matters more than ever. So take a little extra time today, make sure you do, to appreciate not just the fathers or the grandfathers or the uncles out there, but any strong father figure that you may have.
GB News, the People's Channel. GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Welcome back to Breakfast, 25 minutes past 6. And breaking news this morning, the TV presenter Jeremy Clarkson has revealed that he's been diagnosed with aggressive prostate cancer in an emotional video.
In the scenes, he's telling his co-stars Caleb Cooper and Charlie Ireland, his land agent and his farm manager, and they're both devastated, as you can imagine. You know, it's a huge bombshell to drop on them. He's only 66. He's made no secrets that he's maybe not lived the healthiest lifestyle. After the heart problems, he bemoans having to eat Greek yogurt and kale and whatnot. But following this, I think he's going to have a complete lifestyle overhaul even further, and just fingers crossed the treatment proves effective.
GB News, the People's Channel. Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
Hello there, Emily and Tom. Yes, some breaking news in the last few moments from Kensington Palace regarding our future king, Prince George of Wales, the oldest son of the Prince and Princess of Wales. The short statement from Kensington Palace reads, Kensington Palace can confirm that Prince George will attend Eton College in September. That news just coming in from the royal household in the last few moments. This clearly is, well, perhaps not surprising news for those in royal circles. Eton College, the most prestigious school, arguably in the country, educating 20 prime ministers, and of course Prince George's own father and uncle, Prince William and Prince Harry, as well as 2 Dukes of Gloucester's, the Duke of Kent and Prince Michael of Kent as well. So that confirmation just coming in from Kensington Palace. £63,000 a year it costs to send a child to Eton College.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome back to Late Edition. Now, this hasn't made one of the front pages, but we are going to talk about it nonetheless, because today, 21-year-old Mohammed Fahir Amaz has been jailed for 3.5 years after attacking 2 female police officers and a member of the public at Manchester Airport. Amaz was convicted of assaulting PC Lydia Ward and PC Ellie Cook during the incident, and a member of the public, Abdul Karim Ismail. In a victim statement delivered in court, PC Lydia Ward said that she was angry that her, quote, cowardly attacker played the victim, asking him how he would feel if his mother was violently assaulted by a male. And Chloe, I think her statement in particular was very powerful and true. They allowed the narrative to be that they were the victim, when obviously then the footage came out which showed him beating up 2 female police officers.
Yeah, you'll remember the video of him and his brother sat on the sofa with the celeb lawyer Ahmed Yaqub, who's saying there these 2 boys have been the victims of a racist attack. Ahmed Yaqub may
Just
not
a
have
reminder
known.
before you carry on, one second, I'm sure you weren't going to do this, but one of the brothers, his brother, has not actually been found guilty of anything, so it's important to say that. But of course, this
Yes.
guy was. So yes, anyway, yeah.
Yes. So one of the 2 brothers has been found guilty. The other one, we had the retrial, 2 trials about the alleged attack against PC Zachary Marsden, and the jury decided that there was not enough evidence to convict them on that. So this guy, Mohammed Fahir Amarz's conviction is about the attack on the 2 female police officers and the member of the public at Starbucks, to be clear. But you'll remember that they played the victim card. They said that they had suffered from a racist attack, and they knew what had gone down. They were there, they knew what the footage said, but because it wasn't out in the public, they were quite happy to lie. All whilst the point that PC Lydia Wood made is the abuse that she and the other officers suffered on social media was so unfair. He could have stopped that if he simply told the public the truth, but he didn't because he wanted to play the victim card.
And 3.5 years, Barry, for this. What do you think? Is it?
Well, look, I try not to second-guess judges' sentences because they have various tariffs they have to impose, and it's not right that the politicians should be, trying to second-guess the judges, particularly when I don't know, I didn't listen to the case. Can I just... I've only just read a tiny bit down at the bottom of the Telegraph, and... earlier we talked about Brexit, and the front page of the Independent is about Brexit. Britain must rejoin the single market. But this is unbelievable. I mean, we left the European Union because we wanted sovereignty. And this thing right down at the bottom of the Telegraph front page, Trump's 100% tariff threat over digital tax.
OK.
Now, who's controlling what we do in the United Kingdom to set our own fiscal rates? This is outrageous.
I do get that, but we've got 20 seconds till bed. But on the actual Manchester Airport incident,
I just think people need to be prepared that under Labour's early release scheme, because he's done time on remand already, he could be out by October.
Right.
And people are going to be very angry when they see that man as a free man later on this year.
All right. OK, all right. Well, there we go. Right, well, look, thank you very much to everyone. Thank you to my wonderful panel. I'm actually off for 2 weeks, but I'm going to hand you over now to Ben, Leo, for The Late Show Live.
Patrick, thanks very much. Texas is considering mandatory Bible study classes in school. Good idea, bad idea? Elsewhere, the latest on Fergie, the Telegraph journalist who penned that story, will be in the studio with me tonight. And also, update on the Charlie Kirk murder case. A judge has ruled that the alleged killer could still face the death penalty, including firing squad, after a row about contempt. All that and more in just a sec.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello again. Very good evening to you. I'm back with your GB News weather update coming to you from the Met Office. We still have an extreme heat warning out, an amber one, across some eastern parts of England through Saturday. Whilst there is fresher air coming in, some of that residual heat is trapped across some eastern parts, so still uncomfortably hot and humid here. Further north and west, a big talking point, the thunderstorms. A lot of the ones over northern England, Northern Ireland, they're clearing through at the moment, but across parts of Scotland, the thundery risk continues into the early hours of tomorrow morning, and also we will then see a few showers developing in parts of the southeast. A lot of dry weather in between across the bulk of England and Wales. Still warm and humid towards eastern parts, but further north and west a bit fresher, a bit more comfortable than some recent nights perhaps. Then into tomorrow morning, well, a cloudy start across much of Scotland. A bit of sunshine perhaps towards the northeast, but yes, generally quite grey. There will be some rain around, but it's not looking as heavy or as thundery as what we're seeing at the moment and overnight. Also across Northern Ireland, bit of cloud, bit of rain towards the west in particular, and down the western side of England and also Wales. Bit of cloud here, some rain pushing through at times, but it's not a total washout by any means. Across more central eastern parts of England, it's a brighter, sunnier start to the day, and really through the day itself, we have a northwest-southeast split, staying quite cloudy, outbreaks of rain, a fresher breeze towards the northwest, drier and sunnier towards the southeast, but some showers pushing into some southeastern parts later. These could turn heavy and thundery. Still hot in the east, but not as hot as it has been, and temperatures towards the north and west, well, mid-20s really for many here. Into Sunday, and we have some cloudy wet weather sweeping its way eastwards. It's not particularly heavy rain or all that persistent, but most of us will see some outbreaks of rain, but there should be some brighter, sunnier weather around as well, and temperatures, well, they're going to be so much more comfortable for many of us than they have been recently, dropping to much closer to average for the time of year. Bye-bye.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
We're celebrating a golden summer with a terrific two-part Great British giveaway. First, you could win a sensational £60,000 in tax-free cash. And that's not all, as you'll also win our most precious prize to date, a fine gold bar worth over £5,000. For a chance to win, text GOLD to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entry start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB22 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 21st of August. This is a network giveaway. Entries will be pulled. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Okoye, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave. I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pearce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
I think GB News is completely unique in the way that we interact with our viewers.
Our audience aren't afraid to have their say. They want their voices heard now, and they've got a channel where that can happen.
I find more and more as I'm wandering around, people come up to me and they say, we saw you on television. I say, oh yes, on what? On GB News.
Hello, are you the famous Sue? The whole crew hit me here now. We came to celebrate.
It's our job to be the eyes and ears of the viewers.
They are part of the GB News family, and I'm pleased to say it's a very large family.
And if people go to the time and trouble of listening and watching, then we've got to do a good job for them.
Well, I'm here right in the epicentre of the protest.
Here we go again.
You just tuned in. Where have you been?
here tonight.
That's what makes us the fearless champion of Britain.
Hello, good morning. Live from Washington, D.C., this is GB News with the story shaping Britain and America. You used me as a punch bag. The policewoman brutally attacked in the Manchester airport brawl breaks her silence, accusing her attacker of playing the victim. Elsewhere, the footage shocking Britain and America. Another incident moments after Henry Novak's murder. Police officers are seen reassuring his killer as the teenager lied dying in handcuffs.
Okay, and we'll get it all sorted, all right? I'm not saying you've done anything, mate, but we need to find out what's happened, okay?
Mate, I've been really...
I know. Okay.
Where tonight's breaking right now, open your homes. The government is preparing a Ukrainian-style sponsorship scheme that could see thousands more migrants brought to Britain from global conflict zones. It seems these warnings are just being outright ignored.
You've allowed millions and millions and millions of people to come into your country that shouldn't be there. And by the way, that's all over Europe. Europe is a different place.
And the Royal Epstein row deepens. Sarah Ferguson reportedly met Jeffrey Epstein at his Florida office while he was in prison. The journalist behind that scoop joins me shortly. I'm Ben Leo, and this is The Late Show Live. Hello, good morning. Welcome to The Late Show Live. Hope you've had a good Friday. It is Friday today. Joining me in DC this evening is my panel, Democrat strategist Laurie Watkins and the former Chief of Staff DeMarco Rubio, Matt Terrell, and in London, former Labour advisor Matthew Torbett and the former Tory Minister Sir Ranil Jayawardena. Thank you, chaps, for joining me tonight. Appreciate it. We'll catch up in just a tick. Right, let's start with a GB News alert and a warning. This contains distressing content. You used me as a punch bag, then you played the victim. Those were the words of the policewoman left bloodied, sobbing and with a broken nose after the Manchester airport brawl. After almost 2 years, this case has been held up as proof that Britain is institutionally racist and that the victim was Mohammed Fahir Ammaz. Well, today, reality caught up because Sergeant Lydia Ward spoke directly to her attacker. She said, "I want you to take a good look at me. You chose to attack a female. You knocked me to the ground with one punch. With so much force, you broke my nose. How would you feel if a male did that to your mother? How would you feel if it was your mother standing here today explaining how she was violently assaulted by a man? What you did was cowardly." Well, for me, that's case closed. But remember what happened here. The whole country saw this. After that clip, politicians and activists all lined up, didn't they? Then the protests began. Defund the police, racism, two-tier policing. But then this happened. Suddenly the country saw what happened before the kick. The punches and violence as police officers are being battered. A 5'2" female hit so hard her nose was broken, shattered into pieces. It's funny, isn't it, how some people lost interest at that point. A male punching a much smaller female police officer in the face, full force, with no hesitation and no remorse. Just look at her. Look at this picture, the blood and the fear. That's somebody's daughter. That's somebody's sister. That's what the real victim looked like, not the bloke doing the punching. Sergeant Lydia Ward says she still sees the difference every time she looks in the mirror. She says she needed surgery and still carries a scar, and yet for months she watched as the man who assaulted her, who did that to her, portrayed himself as the woe is me victim. Well, she told the courtroom today, "You allowed the public to feel sorry for you." That might be the most important line of all for me, because she is right. Millions of people were shown half a story, but today a judge said these attacks were unprovoked and jailed Ammaz for 3.5 years, claiming he showed a total lack of remorse. And yet, 3 years, that is the sentence for doing what he did. 3 years for smashing a female police officer in the face, breaking her nose and leaving another officer psychologically broken. So you decide, viewers and listeners. Is that justice? Well, with me now is political strategist and podcast host Tiffany Marie Brannan. Tiffany, good to see you on The Late Show Live. Just your initial reaction, please, to what we saw today.
It's obscene. It's upsetting, and I'm so glad that Lydia Ward is getting some semblance of justice. I am frankly extremely sick, not just as a woman, but as someone who loves the United Kingdom, of seeing this kind of crime perpetuated against police officers, against those who are serving our government, against those who are supposed to be doing the job and the will of the people that have elected the government and that they're supposed to protect. And I'm frankly also sick of it being constantly by migrants or illegal immigrants. I mean, I was interested today, I was looking up statistics from the National Bureau in the UK of Statistics, and there's 9.4 million crimes that have been lodged for 2025. And they physically will not release the information of who did those crimes or categorize them by those who may be migrants or illegal immigrants. So I think that, you know, we need to really buckle down and understand that this is a woman whose life is irrevocably changed. She now has PTSD. She now has her dream shattered. She has a baby, and she has to look every single day in the mirror with that fear and trepidation and that damage that this man has done by hitting a woman. Hitting a woman in any culture is atrocious and obscene.
Well, if you read the Quran, in some instances, it's not. If you are a wife who commits adultery in the Quran, it says that a husband can stone them. So I don't know about that.
And
but, I mean,
look at the honor killings, Ben. Look at the honor killings in the UK. There's so many honor killings. Baroness Caroline Cox has been talking about this for 20 years, and no one had the idea to listen to her. No one gave her the time of day. There were over 40 courts of recognized Sharia law in the United Kingdom 20 years ago. I can only imagine it's gotten worse since. And I'm frankly sick, as a white woman in America, of hearing crimes being done by men named Muhammad.
Yeah, this guy in this case, he was a British citizen. He wasn't a migrant or an illegal or anything like that. But I mean, it doesn't really make a difference. If you're a man who is prepared to smash a 5'2" female in the face, I think you deserve a damn sight more than 3 years. And do you know what, Tiffany? I'm not sure how it works here in America, but he'll probably serve, if he's behaving well in prison, he'll serve half of that, and he'll be out in about a year and a half.
Really? That's awful. I had no idea. That's insane.
For doing that to this woman. Look at the state of her.
But meanwhile, how many of your citizens, how many British citizens remain in jail for mean tweets or social media posts and, you know, this false idea of Islamification or Islamophobia? I'm so sick of it. I'm sick of the double standard. I believe we call him two-tier Starmer for a reason. And I think that this should be a wake-up call to the British people. If you're a woman, you're not safe walking out. I used to live in South Kensington, and I used to be able to walk in Knightsbridge by myself. I couldn't do that anymore by the time I moved back home. I felt deeply unsafe as a woman walking by herself in a place that had been, I got spat on because I was not wearing a burqa in front of Harrods at night. That's not okay.
Yeah, and just in reaction to what you just said there about people being arrested, I mean, Lucy Connolly was given a sentence of 2 years and 7 months for a conspicuous tweet where she said, burn down the hotels for all I care, ... So this guy given 3.5 years for doing that. Hurty words online, 2 years, 7 months. So there we go. Tiffany, thank you very much. Great to see you. Appreciate it, as always. Tiffany Marie Brannan there. Let's get the thoughts of my panel here in DC. Democrat strategist Laurie Watkins and former Chief of Staff to Marco Rubio, Matt Terrell. Good evening to you both. Happy Friday. Laurie, I'll start with you. What's your... you were gasping during some of that footage.
I was gasping at all of it. It was horrible to see. I hate violence, period. All of it was disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. Two wrongs don't make a right. Should he have done that to the woman? Absolutely not. Should he have done that to that police officer? Absolutely not. Should he have gotten a longer sentence than what he did, especially for assaulting a police officer, which here in the United States would carry, I think, a minimum of 10 to 15 years. I think it's something crazy like that. Any member of law enforcement. Yes, I think it's disgusting. Do I also think it's disgusting that the police, once the guy is in handcuffs and he's on the ground, that they begin assaulting him?
I don't think he was in handcuffs.
It doesn't matter. He shouldn't have been assaulted by police officers. So if you're going to argue that, you're on your own. But two wrongs don't make a right. And I thought all of it was disgusting.
Well, I mean, it kind of does matter. I mean, is it assault if that guy, you're an officer, you've got this chap running riots?
In this country, Ben, yes, it's absolutely assault.
Well,
if you assault somebody on the ground.
In this country, you see attacks against ICE agents all the time, and you have Democrat politicians who promote that. In your country, in the UK, the biggest problem you have, I think you hit the nail on the head, Ben, earlier, and that is that this man, sadly, may only serve 50% of his sentence, and the reason why is that the UK doesn't have enough prisons. You've got the UK government claiming that they may very well release up to 6,000 prisoners from prisons in the UK because they claim they don't have enough space for prisoners. This can be rapists, murderers, people who've conducted assault, leaving those prisons. So look, at the end of the day, I didn't see the full footage. This man was clearly in the wrong. He should have had a much more severe sentence than what came down. You're right, Lucy Conley got roughly 31 months or so, give or take. His is about 42 months. It should be much longer in terms of his sentence. But this goes back to the broken system that you have in the UK, a two-tier justice system. And the bigger concern I have is that the UK is not investing in its prison systems. It's not building enough. And you've got a situation where you got foreign nationalists in prisons where you should have criminals in those prisons.
Yeah, well said. Let's get the thoughts of my panel in London. We have Matthew Torbett, former Labour advisor, and Sir Ranil Jayawardena, former Conservative minister. Good evening. Good morning to you both. Thank you for staying up with us on the latest show live. Sir Ranil, I'll come to you first. Just your take on what we saw today.
Yeah, I mean, I think we were all shocked, well, I certainly was shocked by the fact that the policewoman was attacked when I first saw this some time ago. And I think this speaks to how lenient our justice system has now become, that attacks on police officers are not punished more seriously. And the consequence of that is that it will encourage more people to do exactly the same. And so there needs to be a strong deterrent. There is legislation that enables there to be a strong deterrent, and it's for the Lord Chancellor, the head of the judiciary in the UK, to revise the sentencing rules that judges enforce in courts.
Do you think, Matthew Torbett, hello to you, do you think this sentence should be reviewed for being unduly lenient?
I mean, it could be. I think if the Attorney General feels that way, he can do. We've seen that in recent weeks over a couple of different cases. There's a couple of things, I suppose. I'm not sure what the sentencing guidelines are on this, what the maximum is, if it has been reached or not. If it has, I'm a little bit concerned. I spent a lot of time with a detective constable today looking over some cases. And I think his concern, certainly those within policing, is a lot of policy appears to have been outsourced to the police, when really it should be politicians setting those guidelines, not the police doing so. It's not for them to get involved. But I am concerned about the court of public opinion, and we're going to have this with every case that people don't feel like justice has been mooted to, because I think as he got 3.5 years, it's not the greatest length of time, don't get me wrong, and we should be acting as a deterrent for people assaulting police officers, especially in the viscerally upsetting way that we've seen with this case on PC Cook. But I worry about dishing this out all the time, the Attorney General calling it in every time. And if it is a case of the sentencing guidelines not being strong enough, this is on politicians, I'm afraid.
OK, some comments on your say. Neil, good morning, Neil. You said, Ben, he'll only serve 40% of his sentence under the new release rules, and part of that will be on tag at home. Mandy said, it's disgusting, only 3 years, that's not justice. These governments have the British people's blood on their hands. Absolutely unbelievable what's going on in our country. I guess technically it's not the government, it's the judiciary, but yeah. And Andrew said, Ben, I'm sickened what this policewoman has had to go through, but admire her so much for speaking out and looking her attacker in the eye. I'm watching from Sweden, and my family are shocked at this. Hello, Andrew. Thank you for tuning in from Sweden. Right, some housekeeping with statements with regards to this case. Mohammed Fahir Amaz was convicted by a jury of assault, occasioning actual bodily harm against Sergeant Lydia Ward, assaulting PC Ellie Kirk, and assaulting a member of the public at Manchester Airport. However, Amaz was not convicted of assaulting PC Zachary Marsden. Two separate juries were unable to reach verdicts on allegations relating to PC Marsden, and the CPS subsequently decided not to seek a further retrial. Mohammed Fahir Ahmad was not convicted of any offence arising from the incident. Juries were unable to reach verdicts on allegations relating to PC Marsden, and the CPS later announced it would not pursue a further retrial. Both brothers denied unlawfully assaulting the officers, maintaining that they had acted in self-defence and or in defence of one another. Right, there we go. gbnews.com/your say. Still ahead on the show tonight.
You've allowed millions and millions and millions of people to come into your country that shouldn't be there. And by the way, that's all over Europe. Europe is a different place.
Well, nobody seems to be heeding those warnings from President Trump directed at the UK's way, because, well, they're being blatantly ignored, aren't they? Because the government is preparing to welcome thousands more migrants into the country. That breaking story coming your way in just a tick. But first tonight.
OK, and we'll get it all sorted, all right? I'm not saying you've done anything, mate, but we need to find out what's happened, OK?
Mate, I've been really...
I know. OK.
Another awful case, shocking not just Britain but America as well. It seems relentless. Moments after Henry Novak's murder, police officers are seen on that body cam footage reassuring his scumbag killer as the teenager lay dying in handcuffs. I'll be joined by former Hollywood music video director and conservative activist Robbie Starbuck. You don't want to miss him. He's great. He's joining me next.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, you didn't say that, Dave. I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
From court mornings
to warm family brunches,
from football to tennis in the car,
in the kitchen.
GB News Breakfast is there with the stories you need and the conversations that matter.
Anyway, let's talk business.
Well, it has been a historic night in British politics.
It's astonishing, isn't it? We're here again to start your day just right. GB News Breakfast.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Some people enjoy lazy Sunday mornings, but not me.
What's the truth of the matter?
So that's a very live question.
Would you support him if he waters down these plans?
Before the spin sets in, I'll be getting to the truth.
This is personal.
No soft questions, no easy answers.
It's one thing if the state has rules in this country. It's another thing whether the police and others actually police them.
Setting the agenda and holding those in power to account.
You can't really blame her if the system is set up this way.
You will not want to miss it, trust me. The Camilla Tominey Show, Sundays from 9:30, only on GB News.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I ever got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I never had a relationship with Epstein. Epstein did not introduce me to Donald Trump.
Well, that was the First Lady Melania Trump after the release of the Epstein files, but now it seems like Sarah Ferguson could have some explaining to do. An exclusive on Fergie coming up shortly. But first, a GB News alert and a warning: this contains distressing content. Newly released police body cam footage from moments after Henry Novak's murder, well, it's frankly astonishing. It's more than that, it's disgusting. Because while Henry Novak was lying dying in handcuffs, just listen to how the police spoke to his killer.
Okay, and we'll get it all sorted, all right? I'm not saying you've done anything, mate, but we need to find out what's happened, okay?
Mate, I've been really...
I know. Okay.
Mate, Henry Novak was lying on the floor, dying, handcuffed, and you're calling him mate. And the man who stabbed him was being reassured. But it gets worse.
So you can turn the flashes off, sorry.
No. We can't, I'm afraid.
Is it alright if we can move over here then, so it's not too much in my eyesight? So this is when he got me in the face a fair few good times as well.
Just revolting. As Henry lay dying behind him, Digwear complains about being tired. He complains about the flashing blue lights hurting his poor little eyes. The flashing lights, that's what was bothering him. Meanwhile, Henry Novak was fighting for his life.
Put the hand in the cuff, mate. Yeah. This is like...
Well, the police say they want to rebuild trust. Good luck with that. But here's a suggestion for the police. Start by explaining to the British public how a dying teenager ended up in handcuffs and his killer never did. Joining me now is former Hollywood music video director and conservative activist Robbie Starbuck. Robbie, great to see you on GB News. Thank you for your company. We've had another release of Henry Novak, the poor lad, the body cam footage from the police. Just your reaction to this newly released footage, Robbie.
Well, thanks for having me. You know, when I look at this footage, I don't just see Henry bleeding out on the ground. I see all of Europe bleeding out on the ground, handcuffed by their politicians the way that Henry was handcuffed by those atrocious officers who immediately jumped to believe the perpetrator instead of the victim. And, you know, when you think about the problem Europe is facing, it could not be clearer. From the outside looking in, you've got politicians who no longer care what is good for the people. You know, if you think about your children, replace Henry with your children in the moment he was in, because your children have been handcuffed as well in Europe. They've been handcuffed to make it harder for them to get a home, harder to get a job, harder to feel safe in their own countries, harder for them to enjoy their own cultures, because, oh, it might set off one of these migrants, right? While the migrants have been given every benefit possible in society, reaping the rewards of the hard work of the European people, and specifically there in the UK. And I think at a certain point, the people have to say, these politicians no longer serve us. You know, there was a time before in history where European politicians, specifically in the UK, forgot who they worked for, forgot who they were supposed to be working for. And it's the reason we have this flag here behind me, because a group of men said, enough is enough. We're going to protect our people and our interests. And I think we're at that moment once again. When you watch this video, I don't know how you have any reaction except for pure, unfiltered rage. That's what everybody should feel, especially parents. Your kids' futures are on the line. Your grandkids' futures are on the line. There is not a country in the world that has imported millions of migrants from the Middle East or Africa and been better off for it. It simply has not happened. So if you think your politicians have figured out the anomaly here and that you're going to be the first country to benefit from it, well, you know, I guess we'll just have to all see how that plays out. But so far, it looks like a horror movie.
Yeah, indeed. Henry's murder was just that. It was a horror movie. And watching the footage again today, this newly released footage, the guy, his murderer, isn't even handcuffed. The copper is being all matey and pally with him, saying, you know, mate, just stay there. Not saying you've done anything, mate. Not cuffing him. Even when he was arrested, unbelievably, he wasn't handcuffed. Robbie, just tell me why Americans feel so strongly about this case and actually the sort of managed decline of the UK as well. Why is it sort of touched a nerve with America and Americans?
Well, culturally, we have this love for Europe because I think a lot of people here in America, we can trace our ancestry back to Europe. For me, it's in Spain, right? My family from Cuba originally came from Spain. And you know what? Weirdly, my family in Spain, they dealt with this same issue back many, many periods ago when Islam went and invaded and took over Spain. And when that occurred, you had Spanish women raped, you had Christians slaughtered and killed. And eventually it took the Spanish people rising up and taking their country back. But there's this lineage, right? This DNA, I think, that ties all of us together. And so we have this, you know, natural affinity for Europe, and we want you guys to prosper. We want a strong Europe because not only outside of, you know, that affinity I described, there's also the national security interest of the United States, right? We want a strong Europe because we want a strong West. We want Western civilization to survive. For it to survive, Europe must thrive. If Europe falls because of mass migration, suddenly the world looks a whole lot different, and you have no natural allies in that region should that occur. And so we're looking out over the long game. We're not looking at 4 years from now. We're looking at what does Europe look like 50 years from now? And at the current rate of migration and the fact that European people are having less and less children while the migrants are having as many children as they possibly can, you're looking at a very different set of land masses out there, and I don't think they're going to be anywhere remotely the same as they were 2 decades ago.
Yeah, well said. The State Department here in America, they've said as much. They've written diplomatic cables to European embassies, including the UK, saying, guys, if you don't sort your migration problem out, your societies, your civilization will look nothing like it does now, let alone 20 years ago. I mean, I can tell you, Robbie, as a Brit, the UK has dramatically changed in just 20 years. It's pretty disturbing. Do you think we're salvageable in the West, Robbie? What about America as well? Do you see America sort of leading the way in its fight to save the West? And do you think, say, Britain and Europe is salvageable, or do you think we're past the point of no return?
It has to be salvageable, and I think that has to be the mindset, right? When I looked at Henry and I saw that image of him, I think he was in an elevator, right? I see the best British stock. I see the type of man who built Europe, you know, and that's something we all have to remember is when you look at his face, look deeper than that. You're looking into the soul of what built Europe and made it so incredible in the past. You need that to continue. The whole world needs that to continue. So you have to be salvageable. I don't want you guys to get to that point where you're not, but the truth is, if Europe does fall to mass migration, in 20 years, European people are going to greet us as liberators once again. And I hope it doesn't come to that, but it may come to that at some point. If the European people don't stand up at this point and say enough is enough, mass migration must end, and people have to go back. And listen, I'm telling you that as somebody, because I know there's, you know, probably people in Labour Party watching this right now having an aneurysm, and they're like, you know, you've got a white supremacist on GB News. I'm Latino. I'm telling you guys this as a minority here in America. You cannot import third world people into a first world country and not expect to have third world problems and to become a third world country yourself. You have to manage any migration you have very tightly. And it has to be with a mindset that you need to save your culture. Your culture and your people come first. If your people are unsafe or your culture starts to be diluted by the migration, you've made a very grave mistake. And so it is incumbent on the UK people now to say, our politicians do not represent us, demand a general election, because bringing in this Burnham guy to be your new prime minister after the disaster of Keir Starmer is rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic. Your boat is still sinking. You need a general election now and an entirely new government. And if you look, you know, look at the West over here on our side of the world, right? It's not just the U.S. that has got a more populist right-wing government that is serious about migration now. We're also looking down into South America, where the right has won pretty much every election over the last 3 years, and with governments that essentially are saying, we want our own Bukele. Bukele's the model and should be the model for Europe as well. You guys need Bukele's in every European country who's going to send the migrants back, lock up the criminals, and start putting the people first again, and set up society where families thrive again, where people want to have kids because you can walk down the street safely. You don't have to worry that your daughter's going to be kidnapped when she's out with her friends and be raped by a rape gang. I mean, one of the most atrocious things I've ever read has been this rape gang inquiry. And both Keir Starmer and Burnham both have a part to play in that. They covered for these people every step of the way. They are part of the mass migration problem. Labour has to go out of government for the UK to have a chance.
Yeah, and Keir Starmer had the nerve to call anybody who wanted an inquiry for the rape gangs into the Muslim rape gangs far right. So says it all, doesn't it? Robbie, thank you so much. Thank you for being a vocal supporter of our great country, Great Britain as well, because, you know, sometimes it feels like, and I speak for viewers here, it feels like we are swimming upstream against the tide, and it's good to have American friends this side of the pond, you know, encouraging us and wanting our mojo back, wanting us to get back on our feet. So it's appreciated. Robbie Starbuck, thank you. A spokesman for the Independent Office for Police Conduct has said, our thoughts and sympathies are with Henry Novak's family and everyone affected by his death. We're independently investigating the contact Hampshire and Isle of Wight officers had with Mr Novak prior to his death on December the 4th, 2025, including the use of handcuffs by officers and the first aid provided. Our investigation, which began following a mandatory referral from the force that we received the same day, remains ongoing, and the officers involved are currently being treated as witnesses. Right, let's take a quick look at some of the other news stories dropping here in America. President Trump's former national security advisor, John Bolton, has pleaded guilty to mishandling classified documents. I spoke to him about that case just a few months ago. Back in 2022, you said President Trump's the raid on Mar-a-Lago of the classified documents and the FBI raid, you commented at the time, John, saying that he's shown a disdain for the nature of classified documents. 3 years on, you're embroiled in your own classified documents, scandal, if you want to call it that. Do you regret those comments, bearing in mind what you're dealing with now?
No, because I think the circumstances are completely different. I wish I could talk more about my situation. Unfortunately, it's not appropriate, but I think they're radically different than what happened at Mar-a-Lago.
Well, a few months on, he's pleaded guilty. In other news, TMZ claims to have received yet another email from the person claiming to know the identities of Nancy Guthrie's kidnappers. And this time he says he has a video of the main guy and Nancy the day she died. They've passed the relevant information to the FBI. And finally, the United States military has conducted strikes on Iranian targets after President Trump accused Iran of a foolish violation of its truce following an attack on a cargo ship in the Strait of Hormuz. Right, still ahead tonight on The Late Show Live.
The word, remember when I said tariff? My favorite word is tariff.
Well, he loves the tariff and he's back again with threats of tariffs. This time, towards Britain, with a 100% tariff on our nation. But why? Why would he threaten that? Find out shortly. First tonight.
You've allowed millions and millions and millions of people to come into your country that shouldn't be there. And by the way, that's all over Europe. Europe is a different place.
Well, some really good news to kick off your weekend in style. You'll be pleased to hear this. The government is preparing to welcome thousands more migrants to Britain, staying in homes and communities all across the country. That breaking story coming your way next on The Late Show Live.
Some people enjoy lazy Sunday mornings, but not me.
What's the truth of the matter?
So that's a very live question.
Would you support him if he waters down these plans?
Before the spin sets in, I'll be getting to the truth.
This is personal.
No soft questions, no easy answers.
It's one thing if the state has rules in this country. It's another thing whether the police and others actually police them.
Setting the agenda and holding those in power to account.
You can't really blame her if the system is set up this way. You will not want to miss it, trust me.
The Camilla Tominey Show, Sundays from 9:30, only on GB News.
Breaking news, live updates, stories that matter.
From the heart of the GB newsroom to every corner of Britain, with our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
GB News bulletins are there to deliver the latest news that matters to you.
Bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I've been in Westminster for a long time, but I know that though power may be here, its effect on people's lives is across the whole of the country. We may be where rules are made, but it's where they're implemented that matters. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for forthright and frank discussion on where Britain has come from, where it's going, and where it will end up. That's State of the Nation, Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Vox Populi, Vox Dei.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I am filing a notice of intent to seek the death penalty.
Big update tonight in the case surrounding the alleged assassination of Charlie Kirk after a judge ruled the accused killer can face the death penalty if convicted. And the death penalty, I will say, in Utah includes firing squad. That's coming up shortly. But first, breaking tonight, new Home Office analysis has revealed widespread abuse of human rights laws by illegal migrants resisting removal from the UK. Of course, it's Article 8 of the European Convention on Human Rights, the right to private life and family life. It was written, by the way, to stop the state tearing families apart. Yet, over decades, its interpretation has grown into something its drafters could, I'd argue, never have imagined. That is, a means for illegal migrants and foreign criminals to stay in Britain. And in more breaking news, some good news as well, parts of reforms to the immigration system set to be brought to Parliament will also include so-called safe and legal routes in a Ukrainian-style asylum scheme that will bring thousands more migrants or so-called refugees to the UK. With me now is the host of Law and Border at Real America's Voice News, Ben Berkwam. Ben, good to see you again on GB News, The Late Show Live. Well, first of all, yeah, this latest breaking line tonight about the government, Shabana Mahmood, the Home Secretary, saying we're going to have a Ukrainian-style scheme for even more refugees from conflicts all over the world.
Yeah, as if it wasn't working so well. It was working so well before. Let's just do some more of it. It's like, you know, you lit your house on fire, so let's pour some gasoline on it. The Home Secretary and the leaders of the UK are idiots. You are being run by a bunch of people that are committing national suicide. And we've experienced it here in America. We saw it under Joe Biden. We saw 4 years of mass invasion. We actually used similar language. Secretary Mayorkas at the time called it controlled flow, but all it was an invasion of our country. And you, unfortunately, have been going through the same thing. The sad reality is the UK, with such a smaller population, will be taken over much quicker. And you're already seeing that. Everywhere I've gone in the United Kingdom has been, I've traveled there for the last couple decades. And every time I go there, it's worse and worse and worse. I don't know what to say to you guys other than I pray you elect better people, and I pray you do it in time, or else you're screwed.
Yeah, Ben, people will say, the government will say, well, look, we did this kind of scheme before with the Ukrainians. It was called Homes for Ukrainians, I think. It's basically where Brits could open up their homes and say, yeah, OK, Ukrainian refugee, you've been invaded by Russia. We'll take you into our home. I think the government pay them a certain amount per week to put them up. It's not a lot, but I think it's more the gesture. What's the difference between Ukrainian refugees and, say, I don't know, refugees from Syria and the Middle East and sort of the third world?
Yeah. It's very simple. One wants to kill you, and the other doesn't. You know, when you invite people in that can assimilate, when you invite people in that have similar customs and norms, a Ukrainian migrant that's coming in that is thankful to be there because they're leaving a war-torn region versus an Islamic migrant that's coming in because they've destroyed their own country and their version of jihad is not the jihad in power right now. Not all migrants are created equal, and that's the difference. You've got to this is the bottom line. Every country should come from the perspective, I'm America first because I'm an American. If I was a Brit, I would be Britain first. If I was a Swede, I'd be Sweden first. Every representative of any country should put their citizens first, and the first question you should always ask is what we're about to do good for our citizens. And if the answer is, well, we're going to invite in these so-called refugees, many of them, again, fleeing places where conflicts they either started or they're involved with are coming into your country. If they've ever said death to your nation or death to your ideology, or they want Sharia law, they should not be allowed in. It's very, very simple. And again, that's the difference. Okay, but yeah, the other thing on this is the Great Reset, the global reset with the United Nations. All of this is about redistributing the wealth.
Yeah, I think that's clear to see by now. Ben, people would say, well, hang on a minute, even if they are from sort of the Middle East or the third world, not all of them want to kill us. You know, maybe it's just a minority, maybe it's 0.5%. Not all of them want Sharia law.
Yeah, but we have to know which ones are which. And that's the problem, is when you're inviting in people like this, especially when you have open borders, wide open borders, you're not doing any vetting. You don't have any of the information. And again, there are countries that we share information with, but there are many countries, we don't have any information of Syrian refugees. We don't have any information of Iranian refugees. We don't have any information of most of the Middle East refugees. So unless we can actually do validation of who you are and where you came from and why you're coming, they should not be allowed in. Again, it's just like I treat my own house. If you come to my front door and ask to come in, I want to know who you are before you come in. If you climb through my back window, you better bet you're going to be leaving.
Ben, thank you so much. Love having you on. Appreciate you as well. Ben Berkram, host of Law and Border at Real America's Voice News. See you soon, my friend. Thank you very much. Let's get the take of my panel: Laurie Watkins, Matt Terrell, Matthew Torbett and Sir Ranil Jayawardena. Let's speak to the boys in London first. Matthew Torbett, I just don't understand why these politicians don't get it in their heads. People have voted time after time, all the way back to Brexit, that we don't want an influx of migrants and immigrants into the country, and yet they just don't seem to be listening.
Well, I suppose because there's a subtle difference for a start. These wouldn't be migrants, these would be refugees. These are supposed to be people identified as those fleeing famine and other natural disasters, unfortunately, because there's lots of that in the world. I believe it's being modelled on the Canada system, which has been judged to be fairly successful. I think if you sponsor somebody like this, as opposed to them just crossing the channel in an unsafe manner, they're twice as likely to be in work within 12 months. They're more likely to learn the language within 12 months, assimilate, all this sorts of stuff. And I suppose people may have voted a certain way, you're fair enough to point that out, well, therefore they don't have to do this. There's obviously an element of choice in this if somebody wishes to sponsor a migrant and do that thing. It's not something I'd be willing to do. I've got more than enough on my plate, unfortunately. And maybe I'm cruel for doing that and saying so, but people may wish they want to do so. People may wish to do what they see as a good thing. And I imagine, if I was to think about what the government are doing this for, it's because these people in particular seem to be the ones that are mostly seen in the small boats, Eritrea, Sudan, places like that. So it's probably Shabana Mahmood's way of going, try and stop the small boats and do this in a process manner. I know Ben just said, that we're not going to know who these people are. The idea is they're vetted before they come here. It's a safe and legal route where people are processed before they come across.
Yeah, okay, interesting. Yeah, you make a good point that it's down to Brits. If British people could be seeing that scheme, Sir Ranil, and say, oh yeah, that sounds great, I want to do a good thing, I'll take them into my home. But I'll tell you what, it won't be long before, and I'll put my name to this, before something tragic happens.
Well, I think there's two other things that I'd like to draw out. First is, talking about the Ukraine scheme, I remember actually one very liberally minded person in my old constituency who complained to me at great length that we were not moving quick enough to enable her to invite a Ukrainian family into her home. And then, I think within 6 months, she would complain to me and ask me to go and see her and explain at great length why it was now the state's job to look after that Ukrainian family. And so, I think it's be careful here that, even if people want to do something that they see as good in the short run, they might decide in the long run, actually, it's not for them, and someone's going to have to pick up the tab, and that is the government, that's therefore the taxpayer. And then the second big thing to consider here is, again, does this risk another pull factor to the UK where people are making the case that they are refugees, but actually they are economic migrants? And that's what we've seen in a lot of the small boat crossings, people that are quite simply economic migrants discarding their paperwork in order to be able to claim asylum when they come here.
Yeah, and surely by default, if you're coming from any of those war-torn countries or famine sort of suffering countries, then they're all refugees. What's stopping the whole nation, the whole population from coming over? And also, I will say as well, okay, fine, fair enough, if Brits want to volunteer and take them in, that's one thing, good luck to you. But also, they'll be in the country regardless. They'll be out and about in communities. They'll be amongst our women and our girls. And I'll say again, of course, they're not all wrong-uns, but one is enough. We have our own misfits and degenerates without importing more of them. Matt Terrell, would you take a refugee from, I don't know, Syria into your home?
No, probably not. But look, the truth is insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. What the UK is doing here is absolutely insane. The bottom line here is you can't afford to do this. we're talking about today. I saw news about the UK potentially releasing up to 6,000 prisoners, as I said earlier, because you don't have enough space in your prisons. There are people in the UK who are dependent on healthcare in the UK. Instead of getting that typically within a few days, healthcare access, they're having to wait days and days to get access because you have illegal immigrants who are accessing your healthcare system. Defense. You can't afford to get to even 5% on defense, it looks like. You're at around 2.3% on defense. You can't afford to do this. In addition, the security concerns are there. Now, would I sponsor somebody in my home? I shouldn't say no, depends. Depends on the circumstances. But the reality is, at the same time, I think that we need to be mindful as countries of who these people are. And I would sponsor somebody if they went through a vetting process. And I would sponsor somebody if I was taking full financial responsibility for that person. What I would not do is sponsor that individual in my home and put that on the state, put that on the taxpayer. And it's exactly what you're going to be doing here with this asylum process. One more point I'd make. Here in the United States, just recently the Supreme Court weighed in on asylum here in the United States in favor of President Trump's position. Because what we had here was people seeking asylum in this country, which should have been temporary. But instead they were staying in the United States for 10, 15 years. You may very well have that same case in the UK, where people come in temporarily, quote unquote, but they end up being there for 20 years in your country, and the taxpayers are picking up the cost. So if I'm going to take someone in my home, which I shouldn't say I'd be against, I'd only do it if, in fact, I was picking up the cost myself. I think it's unacceptable for a country like the UK that's in debt, can't afford defense, can't afford to build more prisons, evidently, can't afford to put air conditioning into your schools and other places. This is not the time to be taking in more people in your country to put that on top of the infrastructure it's also already having a lot of pressure on it.
Yeah, well said. Mic drop, I think, on that. Laurie, would you take a refugee, quote unquote, into your home?
Absolutely, and I already have.
Oh, you already have? Where were they from?
I won't say.
Oh, why not?
Because I'm on this show and I know better.
What does that mean?
I know better.
Okay. How was it? How was the experience?
About TPP status. So for TPP status,
hang on a minute. I'm not changing the subject.
You have to get checked every single year.
Laurie, we're talking about this.
1 month, 3 months, 6 months, or 12 months. So a person that has TPP status in the United States right now.
Nobody knows what this means in Britain, Laurie.
For that even to get extended, you have to go in front of government agencies and governmental officers like ICE, etc., in order to get that. So those people, the 300,000 Haitians here in the United States and the 600,000 Venezuelans, they contribute over $6 billion to the U.S. economy.
Laurie, no, you're changing the. I don't know what you're changing the story. We're talking about a scheme in the.
We're talking about TPP.
We're talking about here in the US, viewers back home in Britain are going to be watching this now saying, what's TPP? We've gone from
protective status.
All right, well, they don't know that.
I went through what that is for people. So
okay, well, I'm not changing the story. If we're going to talk about that, we'll do it in the next segment. But I'm talking about this story. How was the experience of you having a refugee in your home?
It was wonderful. I wouldn't have taken the person into my home if I didn't think so. And I had worked with this person or this family in their home country, so that's why. They were my translator. Just like many other people that have worked with translators in their government work, in their NGO work, in their private capacity, whatever. And that was also a promise that we gave to thousands of Afghans who we took here to this country, who they also lost their temporary protective status.
Well, one went and murdered a National Guard officer a few months ago.
You guys worry about a lot that has never happened, and there's no evidence. So if this
didn't they, Laurie?
keeps you up at night
one of those Afghan.
Never even happened. I feel sorry for you guys. I really do. You must not sleep at night.
Who is that person?
None of the things that you accuse people of doing have happened. You said, "Oh, all it takes is one," or none of this has happened. You just are making things up in your head for the audience to scare them.
Okay, am I making up the fact an Afghan interpreter brought in by Biden went and murdered a National Guard member in DC?
Sure, you're bringing up a specific case. If you stick to specifics, I'm fine with that.
Well, that's what I'm talking about. One is enough. That's what I'm saying. I said one is enough. There's one example. I'm sure there's plenty more. There was another actually in Virginia.
So let's deport every single person because of one person. That's your policy?
Well, yeah.
That's how you feel?
Yeah, actually, yeah.
It is?
Yeah.
Yes, so finally he says your
because we don't know
audience of GBNews, finally he's being authentic.
Are you okay tonight, Laurie? You seem a bit tense.
I'm not tense, Ben.
No?
You just don't like my answers, as usual.
No, okay. All right, gbnews.com/your say. Let me know your thoughts. I'll get to those in just a tick once I've vetted them. Still ahead on The Late Show Live tonight.
And I'm especially pleased to say that, likewise, religion is back in our country, bigger and stronger than it has been in many, many years.
As President Trump made a major address to America's Faith and Freedom Conference today. Texas is taking religion one step further in schools. I want to know your thoughts on this. More details in a sec. But also on the show tonight, the real reason behind Harry and Meghan's reported return to Britain. Do you welcome them back, by the way? Are you happy they're coming back? Well, the reason may have just been revealed. This is The Late Show Live, back in just a tick.
Breaking news, live updates, stories that matter.
From the heart of the GB newsroom to every corner of Britain, with our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
GB News bulletins are there to deliver the latest news that matters to you.
Bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From court mornings
to warm family brunches.
From football to tennis in the car.
In the kitchen.
GB News breakfast is there. With the stories you need and the conversations that matter.
Anyway, let's talk business.
Well, it has been a historic night in British politics.
It's astonishing, isn't it? We're here again.
To start your day just right. GB News breakfast.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters. Real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact that Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised. I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's political podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's political podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
Because the failure is...
You're
the failure is...
deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Co weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to The Late Show Live. Still ahead, Sarah Ferguson reportedly met Jeffrey Epstein at his Florida office while he was in prison. What is going on there? What was going through Fergie's mind, as I said to Patrick a bit earlier tonight, to say that she has a questionable judgment of character is generous, to say the least. The journalist behind that scoop from The Telegraph, Poppy Wood, she joins me live in the studio shortly. But first, let's delve into some of the main stories on the front pages tomorrow, starting with my old paper, The Sun, which is reporting that Prince Harry will reportedly take his children to see his mother's grave for the first time when they visit the UK next month. Let's get the thoughts on my panel in London to start with. Matthew Torbett, this seems quite nice on the surface. I guess Harry and Meghan, sort of reconciliation with the royal family, and going to see Princess Diana's grave, Matthew.
Yeah, I mean, I think in theory, I think it's fine. There is always the cynic in me that knows how sometimes these things work, that it's also, it makes for good PR and it's all very nice, and are they going to come back someday and whatever else. But, it's something my brother has done with his two kids who knew they met my late gran when they were like 6 months, a year old. They won't remember her. But it's just a nice thing to do and sort of remember that sort of legacy, I suppose. So, yeah, no, I'm not against it. I think it's a nice thing in principle.
Yeah, Serrano, would you welcome back Harry and Meghan permanently to the UK? Could this be the first tiptoe steps to that happening?
Yeah, I mean, I very much hope so. I think it's a great shame that for the reasons that have been well reported, and perhaps many others, who knows, that the family is estranged from the rest of the royal family. And so, yeah, you know, for both Harry but also his children, I think it would be a lovely thing if that could happen. I do have to say, you know, I think equally Harry should think carefully about are there things he could do in public life that would contribute to the work of the royal family in the United Kingdom or indeed abroad. And, you know, there is, of course, I'm sure, a route for him if he wants to do that as well, and that would be a great service to the country.
Yeah, the poignant trip, as the Sun writes, will take place at Althorpe House in Northamptonshire, days after what would have been Princess Diana's 65th birthday. I will say it's a shame that Meghan's father won't ever see the grandkids. I don't think he has so far. Laurie, are you a fan of the royals?
Yeah, I think this is great. I don't know why people just don't leave them alone. If they want to visit the grave, let them visit the grave. I was asking during the break if this was like an announcement of some new deal, because it says on the headlines here, Megxit. So what does that mean? Is like a prenup that Harry and Meghan are getting some conciliation somewhere if they bring the grandkids?
Yeah.
I don't know. That's what that headline. If that's not true, then I think it's pretty misleading. But that was the first thought that I had. If it's just to visit the grave, good on them. Brilliant. Leave them alone. I hope the paparazzis don't show up and let them have the private moment to themselves.
Yeah, I mean, that would be a bit sick. Front page of the Mail, exclusive terms of Harry's new Megxit deal that will see the King reunited with his grandchildren. So, yeah, Matt, there seems to be some sort of new deal, some agreement.
Yeah, it seems like it. And look, there's nothing quite like family that brings people together right at the end of the day. And obviously, this has been a lot of turbulence you know, over the months and years here. But look, you know, Princess Di is a very special place, obviously, the people of the UK's hearts, but people here in the United States. I was quite young, but I remember when where I was personally when she died. Had a huge impact on me, many Americans nationwide. So this is something I think Americans will follow as well here in the United States, and hopefully it's good news and good things to come here.
Yeah, why did Americans take to Princess Diana so much? Because I talk to Americans even today, and they'll say Diana was our favourite. We love her. We miss her. What was it
just
about?
Just a very classy woman. You know, somebody who certainly I think was seen as a wonderful mom. And somebody who really championed the values of the UK, which are many of those values, of course, are the values of the people of the US. And my mom was very much a big fan of hers. I just remember waking up in my living room watching all the news coverage of the sad death of her, and it really did shock our nation. And again, I was very young at the time. Ben, you and I are roughly the same age. But the truth is, it had a huge impact here in the United States. I just think she was seen as somebody who was a great mother and a great representative for the people of the UK.
Yeah, I remember, I'm 36 now, I remember I was watching Nickelodeon on television as a young kid. I must have been about 6 or 7, and they interrupted the kids' TV to say, they went to a Sky News stream and said Princess Diana's died. I ran and told my mum upstairs, and she couldn't believe it. Yeah. Right, there we go. More coming up in the next hour, including this.
The word, remember when I said tariff? My favorite word is tariff.
From cold mornings
to warm family brunches.
From football to tennis in the car.
In the kitchen.
GB News Breakfast is there with the stories you need and the conversations that matter.
Anyway, let's talk business.
Well, it has been a historic night in British politics.
It's astonishing, isn't it?
We're here again. To start your day just right. GB News Breakfast.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Okoye, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave. I'm so surprised. I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Some people enjoy lazy Sunday mornings, but not me.
What's the truth of the matter? So that's a very live question. Would you support him if he waters down these plans?
Before the spin sets in, I'll be getting to the truth.
This is personal.
No soft questions, no easy answers.
It's one thing if the state has rules in this country. It's another thing whether the police and others actually police them.
Setting the agenda and holding those in power to account.
You can't really blame her if the system is set up this way. You will not want to miss it, trust me.
The Camilla Tominey Show, Sundays from 9:30, only on GB News.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Tom Harwood. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello, good morning. Live from Washington, D.C., this is GB News with the stories shaping Britain and America. And breaking right now, open your homes. The government is preparing a Ukrainian-style sponsorship scheme that could see thousands more migrants brought to Britain from global conflict zones. It seems these warnings are just being outright ignored.
You've allowed millions and millions and millions of people to come into your country that shouldn't be there. And by the way, that's all over Europe. Europe is a different place.
And speaking of the president, trade war warning. Trump threatens Britain with 100% tariffs if it refuses to scrap its tax on American tech giants.
Word, remember when I said tariff? My favorite word is tariff.
The Royal Epstein row deepens. Sarah Ferguson reportedly met Jeffrey Epstein at his Florida office while he was in prison. The journalist behind that scoop from The Telegraph joins me shortly. And benefits Britain. The Polish government tells its citizens to claim British benefits before moving back home to Poland.
Disability benefits.
Welfare system. Welfare state.
It's the land of milk and honey, isn't it? Great Britain 2026. I'm Ben Leo. This is The Late Show Live. Good morning. Welcome to The Late Show Live. Happy Saturday. It's going to be a great weekend. England, of course, playing later today, technically against Panama in New York City. Joining me in Washington this evening is my panel. Democrat strategist Laurie Watkins, former Chief of Staff to Marco Rubio, Matt Terrell, and in London, former Labour advisor Matthew Torbett, and the former Conservative Minister Ranil Jayawardena. Thank you, boys, for your company tonight. Right, a GB News alert this hour. President Trump has issued a serious threat today of 100% tariffs on countries, including Britain, who pursue a tax on big American tech companies. Taking to Truth Social today, he wrote, "Please let this statement serve to represent that any country that imposes such a tax will be immediately met with a 100% tariff on any and all goods sent to the United States of America." Right, there we go, 100% tariffs. He loves the tariff. Matt Terrell, your take on this. Is it fair? A fair take from the president?
Well, it's unfair what the UK is doing to the United States in terms of targeting these tech companies with taxes. I think it's absolutely fair with the president.
Just explain to our viewers what the tech companies are complaining about.
Yeah, what the complaint about is attempting to make investment, do business, frankly, in the UK. And here you have, essentially, if they're making enough money, you have the UK government basically saying, well, we're going to put on place a tax on you. Essentially saying, you know what, we're going to punish you for making so much money, so we can basically redistribute that, pass that down, trickle down economics. The truth is these companies should not be punished for doing business in the UK. If you're the UK, the government of the UK, you should incentivize these tech companies to want to come into the UK and do business. How do you do that? By reducing tax rates, not increasing tax rates on these companies. So look, you've seen this here in the United States. Take states like California, which have massive taxes, billionaire taxes. You've seen many companies leave California, including tech companies, who've gone to states like Texas and Florida. Why are they doing that? Because of tax policy. So I think what the president is doing here is saying, look, you're going to hit our companies with unfair taxes in our view. We're going to hit you right back with tariffs. Frankly, that's something that presidents haven't done in the past. It's reciprocal, and I think it's right what the president is doing here.
Laurie, why haven't other presidents done this in the past?
Well, I think it's the time that we're in, that we finally caught up to e-commerce and taxes, especially all of these companies that we're talking about have reached global status. They're not just operating here in the U.S. anymore. But I'm curious why you all care that their U.S. companies are getting taxed, especially companies like Amazon that have come in that I'm sure have put small businesses out of business in your communities. You don't think that anyone should have to pay the price for things like that?
We're talking about massive companies that could be creating jobs in the UK. We're talking about massive companies.
They already are creating jobs.
Okay, well here's the biggest way. If I'm a tech company, the reason why I would not do business in the UK and go to other countries is because you're putting an unfair tax on me. Every time you tax a company, that's less money they have to spend on creating a factory or hiring a new person.
No tax at all?
Many people would argue there should be very limited taxes on companies and individuals. It's why President Trump passed the One Big Beautiful Tax here in the United States. He helped out individuals, like no taxes on tips. He helped out seniors. He helped out working class Americans. To go and be a country like the UK, where frankly you should want to have a greater partnership with the United States. You should want businesses to invest in the UK and to create jobs in the UK. But if you put these taxes on companies, I'm telling you right now, these business owners are not going to do business in your country. They will go to other countries. They'll go to the Middle East. They'll go to other places where they don't have these tax burdens. Every time you put massive taxes on these companies, it's less likely they're going to invest in your country. It's less likely they'll open up another factory. It's less likely they'll hire another person. Companies have to balance their budgets. And if you're in the UK, you should be embracing these companies by reducing the tax burden on them, not putting an unfair tax on them.
Yeah, they're also paying tax of sorts in the UK. They're paying corporation tax and so on. I know Meta, for example, they'll do it via Dublin to reduce their tax bill, then they'll shift things around.
I'm just asking, what is President Trump upset about then? Like, what is he threatening?
What he's upset about is
taxes, that it's reached a certain threshold, that they've gone over. Like, what is his? I don't understand what he is specifically making this threat about.
He's acting like every president should. He's being the CEO of the United States of America. He is saying if we're going to have U.S. companies, that he is trying to do what he can as a leader, help the economy grow. These U.S. companies are vital to U.S. economic growth.
I'm not disagreeing with you, Matt. What are they doing that he's upset about?
What do you mean?
Don't know. What is it? Is it 50%? What is it?
He is saying to the UK government, this is not acceptable to me as the CEO of the United States of America.
And what is not acceptable? That's what I'm asking.
He has been clear about it, for putting this roughly 2% tax on these companies. He is saying that's not a good. This stuff adds up. If you're a company, at Ben's point, you're already paying massive taxes. These companies pay a ton in taxes, and for a foreign country where we're trying to make investment in and create jobs in, to put a tax on these companies, that's unfair. It's these companies that are doing a favor, frankly, in many ways, to the UK by creating jobs there and opportunity there. They should embrace these companies by reducing the tax burden, not increasing it. The same can be said for states like California. It's why so many businesses and billionaires and trillionaires now, like Elon Musk, left California. Elon Musk left California for Texas. Why? The ridiculous regulations and the ridiculous tax burden that the stupid politicians in California put on them.
The digital service tax, Matthew Talbot, in the UK generated around just under £1 billion in 2025, 2026. So I mean, it's not a massive amount. Really, in the grand scheme of things, but I guess the point still stands. When they're paying corporation tax anyway, yes, I know they're very shifty and snide in the way they do that. Why would you try and miff off all these massive US tech giants who, as Matt Terrell has said, provide thousands and thousands of jobs, God knows what, to our economy, for a measly £1 billion a year in the grand scheme of things?
I suppose, and I've not seen the reasoning for it, is to sort of level the playing field when it comes to the high streets in the UK. As we can see, the organised crime sector has totally taken over our high streets in the UK, whether it be barber shops, vape shops or whatever else, to funnel through illegal cigarettes, drugs and all manner of other things because of a failed asylum system. I think because of that, and because people use online a lot, there's maybe a leveling of the playing field. I think on the listen, I don't want to see punitive taxes, but somebody mentioned Amazon earlier, so I will use that as an example. They made a profit of 222 million quid. Fair enough, big company, you know, they do well. The thing I think annoys people is because they route their scheme through Luxembourg, they paid 0 corporation tax, and in fact, we paid them £7.7 million because of infrastructure they put into the UK, which they would have built anyway. So I think if it's going to be about levelling the playing field that way, I'm all for it. I think on the tariffs, President Trump's welcome to do that. I think the tariffs that he's done over the last 12 to 18 months have been shown by the New York Fed that 90% of those have been borne by the US taxpayers, and in fact it's cost each US person about $1,700 because people will still trade. You're just going to have to pay a premium for that as a US citizen.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, let's get the thoughts of Chief Washington Correspondent at the Daily Telegraph, Connor Stringer, friend of the show. Connor, good to see you. What's your take on this? What's going on?
Yeah, well, probably long overdue, isn't it, Ben? Good evening to you, or good morning to everybody back home. This is something that President Trump and the administration have had their eye on for some time. They see this as a punitive, unfair taxation of America's biggest tech companies, and that Britain and others, including Europe, who have similar levies, are basically using America's innovation, biggest technology, social media companies, search engines, as a piggy bank to make revenue, fill their coffers, with very little in return. When I asked the president about this in the Oval Office, actually in April, he threatened a similar tariff. I don't think it was 100% back then as well. The UK have been in negotiations with the US as part of their ongoing trade agreement to kind of get around some of the disagreements they had when they signed the trade deal last year. And this has been one of the big sticking points that are on the table. I suspect this has come to head, and Trump is trying to get a last minute concession out of Britain on this.
Do you think he's just calling our bluff then, calling the UK government's bluff because he's trying to get a more favourable trade deal? Or do you think he'd actually carry out his threat and whack us with a 100% tariff?
Look, I would take it very seriously. I mean, because you must understand that the administration are completely America first, and their whole ideology towards this is that they don't want to see American companies unfairly punished and targeted by foreign nations and used as piggy banks when they don't need to be. You must remember, of course, that by design, this tax essentially puts a massive net around America's biggest companies. Think Apple, Meta, Facebook. And of course, it disincentivizes innovation, and it's quite anti-growth. Why would companies want to come settle in the UK when they're being hit with essentially a double tax?
Yeah, interesting. Connor, thank you very much. I think you were in the Oval Office this week, were you? Was it you that asked that question about, what was it about? Was it about the strike on Iran, the kick girls school?
No, I think that was maybe Mark Stone or somebody else with quite a nice British accent that's maybe not nicer than mine.
Yeah, okay, good man. Good to see you, Connor. Appreciate it. And yeah, we'll see what happens with the tariffs. Of course, the Supreme Court shot down Trump's first round of tariffs. He's being a bit strategic, going through another method, so we'll see. Also, interesting point to leave on. We've got probably a new Prime Minister coming in a few weeks, probably a new Chancellor as well. So I just wonder, they're going to have to reset relations, Connor, with the US administration. Starmer's gone. They never liked Starmer. We both know that. The world knows that now. Any thoughts, any inside scoop or talk about the incoming UK government and the Trump administration?
Yeah, well, I can tell you actually, the White House couldn't. I say less bother, but there's Andy Burnham is so unknown to the officials in there that one of them told me yesterday that they couldn't pick him out of a police lineup. So that probably says all you need to know either about Andy Burnham or the level of the briefing that's been going on who he is on this side of the country. Andy Burnham's got a massive task. Trump already knows little about him. What he does know about him, he's described him as being extremely liberal, and he doesn't think he's going to drill the North Sea. He's taking the reins of a relationship, a special relationship relationship, as you say, Ben, and we know, and have covered now for the last year, that has frayed like never before. Free speech, immigration, defence spending are all things that he's going to have to face head on immediately as soon as he picks up the reins, and from a president who at the moment doesn't seem to have a clue who he is.
Yeah, and also I posted about this on X a few days ago. Andy Burnham, tweets from the 6th of January 2021, actually in the wake of, it must have been January the 6th. Any UK politician who gave Trump the time of day should be ashamed right now. I know there's probably a few more from Burnham. Is Trump aware of those tweets?
Look, he probably is, but there's one thing that's quite unique about Trump and what we've seen this. We've seen this with Mandani. You see it a lot of the time, actually, with his political enemies, is that he's actually quite unfazed by these things, and he's often quite keen to forgive as long as you trade that forgiveness for loyalty. And as long as you're loyal and you give him what he wants, he's happy to overlook those kind of things. Andy Burnham doesn't strike me as the kind of person that's going to be loyal to Donald Trump, so I suspect we're going to be in a similar place to where we have been with Sir Keir Starmer in the coming weeks and months.
Great. Let's get the popcorn out. Could be fireworks. Connor, thank you so much. Good to see you. Hope you're well, and we'll catch up soon. Connor Stringer, their chief Washington correspondent at the Daily Telegraph. Right, still ahead tonight on The Late Show Live.
And I'm especially pleased to say that, likewise, religion is back in our country, bigger and stronger than it has been in many, many years.
Well, as President Trump made a major address to America's Faith and Freedom conference today, easy for me to say, Texas is taking religion one step further in schools. You may be interested in seeing what they're proposing. But first tonight...
Disability benefits.
Welfare system. Welfare state.
Welcome to the land of milk and honey. The Polish government is telling its own citizens to claim British benefits before moving back home. I think something like 600,000 Poles have already left the UK back for their homeland in the past couple of years alone. I wonder why. That wild story up soon. This is The Late Show Live. Back in a sec. Right, breaking tonight, The Telegraph is reporting that Sarah Ferguson visited Jeffrey Epstein twice at his office for a fake Fermi setup while imprisoned on child sex offences. The former Duchess of York met the convicted paedophile on 2 occasions at the Palm Beach office of the fake company he invented to secure work release while in prison. She also planned to meet him a 3rd time at the headquarters of the bogus firm, which was called the Florida Science Foundation, but her travel plans fell through at the last minute, so it would have been a hat-trick. With me now is the journalist behind that scoop, US correspondent for The Telegraph, Poppy Wood. Hello, Poppy. Welcome to The Late Show Live. I would say this is extraordinary, but I guess, as I've been saying all night, the best way to describe Fergie's judgment is questionable, to say the least, and that's being quite generous.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly looked like a difficult time for her. She seemed to be going through some sort of financial troubles, but she really was reaching out to Epstein whilst he was in prison to try and get one of her ventures off the ground. Epstein had been in jail for about 9 months by this point, in April 2009, and she contacted him saying, I happen to be in Palm Beach, I'd love to pop by for a cup of tea. Actually, Epstein was supposed to be in jail, but he'd been given a very generous plea deal at this point when he was first incarcerated on sex offences. It was a lower judgment than it should have been, some argue. But so she went along, we see from the Epstein files, and they emailed the next day saying, Epstein said, you look great. And she replied saying, it was spectacular to see you. It was a great honour to see you, that sort of thing. Yeah. She tried to arrange to go again, and then she went a second time. It appears from the Epstein files about a month later, again popping by Palm Beach to go and see him in this office that he got out of jail on very generous work.
Yeah, all very friendly and pally, wasn't it? And one of the emails unearthed from Ferguson to Epstein says, I'm coming into Palm Beach to see you on Wednesday. I land at 9:30. Can your brilliant driver, Yanush, pick me up, bring me to you, the great one, and then take me to Miami, please, with roses on top, love me. And what was she after? What was this organisation she was wanting money for? Wasn't it a women's, ironically, a women's organisation?
So it's very pally at this point. I mean, you can see from the tone of the messages. As I said, Sarah Ferguson she was very public about her sort of financial troubles since divorcing Prince Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, and stepping away from royal duties. And she tried her hand at many things to sort of get things off the ground. I think by that point she'd already been sort of spokesperson for Weight Watchers. She'd tried her hand at film production, and this latest venture was called Mother's Army, and it was trying to connect women in need, and she was sort of scrambling around to find high-profile women that might help support this business venture. But it was
that train of thought is just insane. You're starting a women's organisation for vulnerable and needy women, and you're going to a predator of not just women, but vulnerable young women as well. I mean, what's going through her mind?
Well, she has always claimed that she never knew about the extent of his abuse, and she certainly wouldn't have been friends with him if that were the case.
But he was in prison when she visited.
Well, this is the kind of elephant in the room, is that lots of people say that they bought Epstein's lies and that he found a very believable way to dress them up as oh, it wasn't as serious as it looked, and I was duped, and maybe this woman showed fake ID. But not only visiting someone whilst they're in jail on a child sex offence, but in quite a cushy deal that comes out of it, you would certainly raise questions about what was going on there. It's already been reported that she, after he was released from jail a couple months later in July 2009, he was then put on house arrest at his home around the corner in Palm Beach, and she flew to Palm Beach another time with her daughters, princesses Eugenia and Beatrice, to go and visit him again. So serious questions probably should have been raised, but he was somebody who could seek out people's vulnerabilities and exploit them, and it's certainly possible that happened in this case, that he saw that she might have been in a bit of a pickle and used it to his advantage.
Well, maybe, I've obviously never met the bloke, never will, because he's dead, but maybe he was literally just a very charming man, very manipulative. I mean, that's Fergie's excuse anyway. So this sort of latest tranche of emails is from the Epstein files. So we're still getting documents, are we, from the Epstein files?
No, it's all been there since the sort of latest data dump in January, but as you'll know, and as a British audience will know, there's been a flurry of reporting in the initial wake of those emails, and now there's a bit of a lull. And in that time, Congress has invited people to speak and give testimony because they want accountability for what's gone on here.
Andrew, Fergie?
Well, not yet, but some people have been speaking in the past few weeks, and they raised this fake company that Epstein had appeared to set up to get him out on work release whilst in jail, and that really piqued our interest. We started looking into it. So it's more just a matter of collating things that have already been out for quite a while, but there are 3.5 million documents that are out there. It takes some digging and some piecing together to work out who's doing what when in decades of sort of data.
And just tell our viewers, Poppy, when you are going through the files, what does that look like? Do you have any sort of software or bots to help you search for keywords, or do you have to manually trawl through all these documents? What's it like?
I wish it were more sophisticated than that, and I think in years' time we'll be looking back in this thinking, I can't believe journalists were manually scraping through the files, and they're not in chronological order, so it really does take some sort of timeline process that you have to do. We should have used AI, but this is a matter of me and my team going through it manually and trying to make sense of these things.
Yeah, well done you. Great scoop. What is Sarah Ferguson doing these days?
Good question. She seems to, there is reporting that she's been at various wellness retreats since
trying to find herself.
And Andrew have faced scrutiny in the wake of the Epstein files, but I think it's a matter of sort of staying low. She is not commenting on Epstein file stuff at the moment, but as I said, she's previously said that she distanced herself from him as soon as she knew the full extent of his crimes.
Yeah. All right, Poppy, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Great scoop. Hopefully you'll come back in the studio soon. Are you enjoying DC? How long have you been here?
Yes, 5 weeks or something.
5 weeks?
Very new to it.
Oh, you're a newbie. What do you make of it?
It's lovely. It's very nice, but it's very different conditions to London, although not at the moment because it's a heat wave in London. So I'm acclimatising from coming London to swampy DC, but it's certainly a lot going on here.
Swampy DC. You wait for the mosquitoes as well. They're the worst thing in the summer. They'll be here soon. Poppy, thank you very much. gbnews.com/your say. Thoughts on that, viewers and listeners. A spokesman for Miss Ferguson previously told the BBC that the Duchess spoke of her regrets about her association with Epstein many years ago, and as they've always been, her first thoughts are with his victims. Like many people, she was taken in by his lies. As soon as she was aware of the extent of the allegations against him, she not only cut off contact but condemned him publicly, to the extent that he then threatened to sue her for defamation for associating him with paedophilia. Let's take a quick look at some of the other main news stories here in America. President Trump's former national security advisor, John Bolton, has pleaded guilty to mishandling classified documents. Well, I spoke to Mr. Bolton about these allegations just a few months ago. Back in 2022, you said President Trump's the raid on Mar-a-Lago of the classified documents and the FBI raid, you commented at the time, John, saying that he's shown a disdain for the nature of classified documents. 3 years on, you're embroiled in your own classified documents scandal, if you want to call it that. Do you regret those comments, bearing in mind what you're dealing with now?
No, because I think the circumstances are completely different. I wish I could talk more about my situation. Unfortunately, it's not appropriate, but I think they're radically different than what happened at Mar-a-Lago.
Well, he can talk now because he's pleaded guilty. In other news, TMZ claims to have received yet another email from the person claiming to know the identities of Nancy Guthrie's kidnappers. And this time he says he has a video of the main guy involved and Nancy the day she died. They've passed the relevant information to the FBI. And finally, the United States military has conducted strikes on Iranian targets after President Trump accused Iran of a foolish violation of its truce following an attack on a cargo ship in the Strait of Hormuz. Lots more still to come on The Late Show Live tonight, including this.
Over this Parliament, £270 billion spent on defence. That's the sort of money that's never been spent before.
Well, he's still our Prime Minister for now. Sir Keir Starmer's pressing ahead with a military investment plan, despite warnings it leaves Britain exposed. So why is Britain's lame duck PM saying that? All the details in a second, but still ahead tonight.
Disability benefits.
Welfare system. Welfare state.
Another joke story. The Polish government is reportedly urging its own citizens to claim British benefits before trotting off back home. Fill your boots, then get back to Poland. Even our allies are laughing at us. This is The Late Show Live. Quick look at your weather.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good morning, welcome to your latest GB News weather update brought to you from the Met Office. The final hot day across eastern areas of England, much fresher further west with outbreaks of rain and showers, particularly across the northwest. It will be dry for many southern areas of the UK through much of the day, but there is a risk of some thundery showers across more central and northeastern areas of England into this afternoon, and then in the southeast later on this evening. We do still have an extreme heat warning in force across eastern areas of England, so although temperatures are not quite as high as they have been through this week, we're expecting some further impacts. Highs of 33 degrees possible in parts of the southeast. Elsewhere, much closer to average, the high teens, low 20s, but still in the mid-20s across central areas of England. So still a pretty hot day for these areas. Outbreaks of rain will affect parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland through this evening, particularly for more western areas of Scotland. We're not expecting as much thunder and lightning than we did see yesterday for these areas, but still some quite heavy outbreaks, some gusty winds too for Northern Ireland as well. Much drier for northwestern England, southeastern Scotland as well. Temperatures in the mid-20s to end the day on Saturday, so still pretty warm out there. Strong sunshine into the late evening. Very sunny for parts of Wales, the southwest of England, but it's across the southeast where we could see some thundery activity through Saturday night into Sunday. It may remain offshore. We may just see lightning out off the coast, but we could see some heavy downpours and possibly some hail. Another very warm night across eastern areas, Saturday night into Sunday. Across the west, though, it will turn much fresher as this weather front pushes eastwards, introducing much fresher air. So a much more comfortable night for more western areas. Still temperatures in the 20s, though, across the southeast to start the day on Sunday. But this weather front will push eastwards through the day, introducing that fresher air more bodily across the UK through Sunday. So a day of sunny spells, a few showers around as well. And for everywhere, it will be feeling much more pleasant with temperatures in the low 20s. Bye-bye.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
To all of you who voted for GB News to win at the Trick Awards for the 4th year in a row.
The winner is GB News.
Thank you so much for voting for us. It's because of you that we're so proud to be the People's Channel, and it's because of you that we are Britain's news channel.
It's voted for the people who watch us.
Well, we've got the best viewers in the world, haven't we? The most loyal viewers.
Thank you.
I am filing a notice of intent to seek the death penalty.
A major update tonight in the case of Charlie Kirk's alleged killer after a judge ruled the accused perpetrator can face the death penalty if convicted. And I'll say again, the death penalty, one of the ways of killing somebody in Utah, is firing squad. That's coming up shortly. But first, fury has erupted tonight after the Polish government published a rather extraordinary step-by-step guide showing its own citizens how to cash in on British benefits before returning home. You wouldn't believe it. Guidance published on Poultry, I think I've butchered that name, but anyway, it's a Polish government website for citizens living abroad. It urges people to check whether they qualify for job seekers allowance before leaving the country. Deary me. Post-Brexit arrangements allow EU citizens who acquired settled status before December 2020 to divert some benefit payments abroad for up to 3 months, even after they've left and gone home. They've left the UK, they've had enough, they've gone back to Poland with their strong borders and flying GDP, and they're still getting paid British benefits. Very good. With me now is Head of Comms and External Affairs at the Adam Smith Institute, Joanna Marchong. Joanna, good to see you. Thanks for your company. This is ridiculous, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many layers to the story, right? It's not the first time we've seen our welfare state taken for granted and also abused. The main issue here is, in this story, it's completely regular for viewers and listeners to basically say, thousands of people are on job seekers allowance now taking the state for a ride in Poland. We've got about 10 people so far. Claim basically about £800 over three months, and that's the real situation. Obviously, that will be abused, and the fact that that is even happening is due to a EU kind of UK Brexit deal that was negotiated in 2019-2020 that allowed EU citizens to have the portability of their benefits. So that's what we're seeing EU countries basically take advantage of, and it's not the first time we've seen stuff like this happen. But again, nevertheless, it's a weak welfare state that is allowing people to basically abuse it.
Yeah, it's all rather depressing, isn't it? You get hard-working British families getting out at the crack of dawn, going to work, maybe a couple of jobs, coming home, just trying to feed their kids, and then every other man and his dog from around the globe is just filling their boots willy-nilly. I mean, it's just a sad state of affairs. In terms of reneging on this, I guess as it's part of the Brexit deal we agreed with the European Union, it's going to be, well, impossible, is it, to go back on this?
So pretty much, yes, it is. When we're hearing like the Conservatives, Helen Whately, saying that she's going to reverse this or make it right, it was part of her government that allowed it to happen in the first place. Again, I will say that this portion of the deal itself, we have 10 people on job seekers allowance. What we need to do is actually focus on the real issue, which is universal credit. Universal credit is where the kind of like benefit scheme is happening. Do you remember like a couple years ago, we had the Bulgarian benefit fraud case, which is still in court today. They only actually arrested 5 people for a maximum of about 10 years, I think, per person. And they had stolen like over £50 million from taxpayers by fraudulently claiming benefits in on itself. So what we have to do is realise that, the foreign national angle might be one that's good for the media, like EU people, EU foreign story is one of the many that's come out. But again, this specific story, job seekers allowance, it's 10 Polish citizens so far. We've got to keep it in context and remember that the real problem is the entire kind of universal credit system as a whole.
Yeah. What is the welfare bill going to be in a couple of years? I think it's on £100 billion a year. Just completely unsustainable. Joanna, thank you so much. Joanna Marchong, Head of Communications and External Affairs at the Adam Smith Institute. Thanks, Joanna. Let's get the thoughts of my panel, Laurie, Matt, and Sir Ranald, J.R. Wardner. Matt Torbett, your take on this?
It's a bit embarrassing, obviously, and I suppose it's easy to point fingers at the last government and the Brexit deal they came up with and whatever else. I think I appreciate Joanna's honesty in saying, you know, we're talking about 10 people, but I suppose it comes to a fundamental issue that people in Britain feel of a sense of unfairness. And I just think, as a principle, you would expect to only receive income-based benefits or benefits for looking for work if you lived in the UK. Now, I can't really be that annoyed at the Polish government because, you know, they're going to be feeling the pinch like any other country and go, I tell you what, we'll get a little bit more out of our welfare budget if we can get the Poles claiming in Britain we've got 3 months extra money here. So I can't necessarily blame them for that. But it all just plays into that narrative again, doesn't it, of broken Britain, people on the take, I'm playing by the rules, and yet I've never felt more worse off, and therefore, I totally get people's frustrations.
Yeah, it's just the optics, I guess. It's, like you said, it's just not a good look. I'm just looking at Poland's GDP. It was 3.6% for the full year in 2025. Sorry, 3.6, which, I mean, yeah, it's great. And there's a reason, Sir Ranil, but I think it's 500,000 or 600,000 Poles have left the UK in recent years and gone back to Poland. Strong borders, great economy.
Yeah, and Poland's on track. If we're not careful in Britain, Poland's on track to overtake us in terms of economic prosperity for people across their country. And so it is something that we've got to be mindful of, and part of what will make Britain more competitive and a stronger economy in the years ahead is getting our welfare bill under control. It's not just this particular ruse. More fundamentally, the welfare system needs reform. There needs to be far greater incentive, far greater push to work, rather than the number of people who remain on benefits today. And yes, hands up, I want to be very honest, we didn't do everything that we should have done whilst we were in government. Absolutely, I'll take that on the chin. But as Matthew rightly said, it's now been 2 years, basically, since Labour took office. They've had the opportunity to reform it, and they haven't.
And actually, Ben, very quickly, it's not just Polish people going back to Poland. There's a huge trend of Brits now going to Poland, such is the state of our economy compared to theirs, and the opportunities that are available.
Yeah, great point. It's just a sad state of affairs. We've got Poles leaving. What we had here in the UK, everybody, this point is to, after Brexit, people voted for Brexit because they wanted strong borders. And what happened was all the Eastern Europeans, who it turns out, well, you don't know what you've got till it's gone, all the hard-working Latvians, the Poles and everything else, they all went home. And then in return, we had an influx of just third worlders, basically, who are just rinsing the benefit system. So people voting for Brexit, they were betrayed thoroughly. I will say, Sir Ranil, by your old boss, Boris Johnson. Weren't you deputy chair of the Tories during Boris's reign, during the so-called Boris wave? Sorry to come at you.
Well, I'll say two things. First, I think just as with today's population of migrants, there were people back then who were EU migrants who were also coming here to exploit the welfare system and the generosity of the British people. So I don't think it's EU migrants good and non-EU migrants bad. I disagree on that. But on the point around Boris, yeah, look, Boris made mistakes. I was deputy chairman for the first part of his tenure as Prime Minister. I'm pleased that part of my role was writing a great manifesto that secured an 80-seat majority, and then I went on to serve as Minister for Trade, where we did secure trade deals with countries around the world that everyone said were impossible when we were leaving the EU. We got them done as we thought we could.
And you know what, Ben? In a moment of rare non-partisanship between me and Ranil, I will say the role of chairman or deputy chairman is sort of a more ceremonial role. There's no great power, and I'm sure he did great stuff with the Conservative members as per his role. So there you go, Ranil. 20 quid later, mate. Cheers.
Yeah, slip him a score, Ranil. He'll be enjoying his weekend. Matt Terrell, any thoughts on this story? I mean, as was it Joanna said, you know, it's only 10 polls in this instance, but it's just the optics of it.
Right. And, you know, the optics are obviously terrible for the UK, and it just, for the people of the UK, it just shows, you know, lack of leadership. You know, it shows that the leaders in the UK are not doing their jobs well, and to have a situation like this obviously is embarrassing. But, you know, look, from the U.S. perspective, you know, we can't laugh too much. You know, under President Biden, in particular, we saw massive fraud on many of our social programs known as Medicare and Medicaid. Those are healthcare specific social programs here in the U.S. Thankfully, President Trump is cracking down on that fraud. You saw the Department of Justice here in the United States cracking down on that fraud. You know, President Trump, under his one big beautiful bill that he passed in Congress, was cracking down on much of this fraud as well. So I think what you need in the UK is a leader who's going to lead on these issues and really tighten things up here. But obviously, it's just an embarrassing moment. There's no question that Poland obviously brought up GDP, but, you know, defense spending, I think they got a bit of a chip on their shoulder in terms of how they're doing compared to the UK. Something that the UK needs to watch in terms of being competitive. Yeah, isn't it ironic? Laurie, any thoughts on this?
Just that I'm glad that they caught the fraud. Yeah. Same thing here. What happened in Minneapolis, I'm glad that they fraud about that too, and everyone that's involved in things like this should be prosecuted.
Yeah, I wonder if we need a UK fraud team, much like JD Vance is heading up here in the United States.
I think you all need it desperately.
Right, still ahead on The Late Show Live tonight.
Over this Parliament, £270 billion spent on defence. That's the sort of money that's never been spent before.
Well, Keir Starmer pressing ahead with a military investment plan despite warnings it leaves Britain exposed. Surprise, surprise. But also still ahead tonight.
I am filing a notice of intent to seek the death penalty.
A big update in the case surrounding the assassination of Charlie Kirk after a judge ruled the accused killer can still face the death penalty if convicted. There was some controversy because there was a contempt of court row. Somebody said something they shouldn't have, which would have ruled out the death penalty. Anyway, the judge has said no, the death penalty is on, and it does include firing squad. This is The Late Show Live. Back in a sec. Quick look at the front pages tomorrow, hitting the shelves in Blighty, starting with the front page of The Times, which is reporting that in his first big policy speech since Sir Keir Starmer's resignation as Prime Minister, Andy Burnham, his potential successor, will set out an economic strategy under which Whitehall budgets will be slashed and money diverted to regional mayors. Matthew Torbett, is this Burnham's revenge on the South? Is the King of the North coming in with his sword and shield and punishing the metropolitan elites down the south of England?
I don't think it's revenge on the South. I think it's maybe, if we're going to call it revenge on Whitehall, which I think has largely forgot about areas of the country that aren't London and the South East. I think it's always been a big part of the plan, the idea of devolving power to mayors like he was, you know, and give them, really empower them to be able to make change in their communities in a way that they would know best because it is their area, as opposed to mandarins in Whitehall and London that may have never even been to those areas and not know what is necessarily needed. So in theory, I'd like to see the detail, but I think it's a good thing, and I think, you know, the closer we get to levelling that playing field, you know, people like me will be quite happy.
Yeah, Serrano, he'll expected to be saying in this speech that regional mayors will have more power, more control over budgets and so on. I think that sounds like a good idea on paper. I'm trying to find something to attack, but I mean, it sounds sounds okay.
Yeah, no, look, I mean, his mayoralty was created by George Osborne, so you know he's been a beneficiary of Conservative policy. But what I would say is that power has to come with responsibility as well. And you know, where we've seen devolved administrations in Scotland and Wales, where we've seen mayoralties across this country, they've been spending other people's money, and perhaps there needs to be a bit of accountability and responsibility that comes with that around tax raising powers, so that people can vote for not only how the money's spent but also how the money is raised.
Does that mean, Matthew or Serrano, that people like Andrea Jenkins, the Reform Mayor of Greater Lincolnshire, or even the Muslim chap down in Brighton, forgotten his name, seems ironic having a Muslim mayor in Brighton, but there we go. Does this mean that they will have control of their budgets for their areas?
So Andrea is a Devo mayor, an executive mayor, so yes, would have that if this story is accurate. But the mayor you're referring to in Brighton, my understanding is that's a ceremonial mayor, the old British mayor, rather than the new devolution mayor.
Got it.
It's all too confusing.
Laurie,
we should have governors like the US. I think they'd be far clearer.
Well, trust me, that's confusing as well sometimes.
I'm confused just listening to this.
Me too. Actually, I'm British. Right, Laurie, Andy Burnham, who is going... Do you know much about Andy Burnham? He's going to be expected to say in this speech, according to the Times, that, sources are suggesting, maybe Matthew, you can comment on this as well afterwards, but he's going to have a number 10 of the North, so he'll be spending less time in number 10 in Westminster and have an office out north to carry out affairs. Laurie.
Well, I hope you have nothing to say about this, Ben, because you've been so supportive of the, Southern White House, whatever you want to call it. The Winter White House. Yeah, the Winter White House, which it's not winter, and he's always there. So it's the Southern White House, which is where I'm from in Florida. So I hope that you are graceful to this.
I think it's a disgrace. Burnham should be spending his time in number 10.
Why?
He should be setting an example. No, I'm only joking. It doesn't really bother me. I mean, Matthew Torbett.
He does. Give him a freaking chance.
Number 10 is tiny, isn't it? Really, Matthew Torbett. I mean, I probably would spend time elsewhere if I had a bigger gaff.
I don't know if yes, in theory, compared to the White House, it's tiny. Yes, I suppose it's a perfectly functionable office. I think this is symbolic, maybe more so than we've not seen any meat on the bones yet. What I did say to Tom and Emily the other day when I was asked to comment, this did come up in the access talks during the last general election. There was a former cabinet member who looked at moving operations towards Manchester and elsewhere, primarily sort of for family reasons, actually, which is why the civil service weren't keen and therefore it was kiboshed. But I think, and this is in theory, if you could get HS2 to work and you could get to Manchester in an hour, yeah, well, exactly, big caveat, but in theory you've got a travel journey of an hour and 8 minutes. Well, you could have all sorts of people commuting into Manchester, and that could only be beneficial to the north, Cheshire, Greater Manchester, wherever else. Stockport, place of the centre of the universe in my world. And I think, it feels like power being shipped out of London towards other areas. I think symbolically it's great.
Yeah, another couple of $100 billion and maybe 30 more years HS2 might be a goer. So, Randall, which party wanted to shift? There was talks, I can't remember, which party wanted to shift Whitehall to... Was it in Tyneside somewhere? Was it the Tories?
So Boris talked about moving many bits of government, including the House of Lords, to York, historic city in the UK. That would make great sense. But I personally favoured Winchester, and of course that's how these bidding wars unfold. That no one can agree, so everything stays in London. But Rishi did indeed move some of the functions of the Treasury and other departments, including Department for what is now Business and Trade, to Darlington, and that economic campus has actually been a great success in not only being a route for people from across the country to enter government, and therefore making sure we take the advantage of the best talent that this whole country has to offer, but also provided an alternative sort of route for people to take in terms of their own careers, even if they'd started in the civil service in London, to forge a new path outside of London with the benefits that can offer them and their families. So that's proven to be a great success, and maybe this will be the same.
It's an interesting prospect. I guess it's trying to sort of combat that metropolitan London-centric elite and that way of thinking. Like, you see it in the BBC, for example, but I guess they've got offices and studios all over the shop. Matt Terrell, Kash Patel wanted to do this with the FBI headquarters, didn't he? He wanted to close the Hoover building down in DC. And
right.
Any detail on that?
Yeah,
Do you know what I'm talking about?
My understanding is it's been shut down. They're going to be moving the headquarters to Maryland, and I believe, and that FBI headquarters is extraordinarily old. It's a rundown building if you've driven by or been in it. But look, for these kind of jobs, whether it's the FBI director, the president, the prime minister, I honestly think people are less concerned where you're at day to day and what your record is, what you're doing. Some of this is for optics. Let's be honest. I think what Andy Burnham is doing here is trying to show he's a man of the people. Some of this, no question, is optics. For President Trump, look, I think he just loves being down in Florida. That's why he's down there. but he's down there during the weekends, and he's up here during the week. So, but look, the optics are one side of this. It's what you're doing in office. We live in an era with Zoom.
Yeah.
As long as it's secure and you're doing your job, that's what people care about. They care about your record and the results. That's what people are focused on.
I'd have Burnham in his underpants in his basement in Stockport if it meant that the country would, get back on its knees. I don't care where he is. That's a sight to behold, isn't it? Right, let's one more quick story. In other news, GBNews can reveal a majority of Britons supports banning the Muslim Brotherhood as a terrorist organisation. That's according to a new poll commissioned by campaign group Muslims Against Anti-Semitism and Christian Phobia. The survey was conducted by JL Partners among 2,000 UK adults, and it found that 54% would support prescribing the Muslim Brotherhood under UK terrorism laws, compared to just 10% who opposed the move. According to the pollster's findings, shared exclusively with GB News, support for prescription rose to 66% after people were shown the findings, while opposition fell to just 8%. The poll also found that support for a ban increased with age. Around 49% of those aged 18 to 34 did back prescription, rising to 59%, 10% more, among those aged 55 to 74, and 66% among those aged 75 and over. Matt Terrell, do you know much about the Muslim Brotherhood? Didn't Obama invite them to the White House once?
Yeah, look, I mean, there's obviously many would argue, connections there between Democrats. Many have claimed connections between Muslim Brotherhood and President Obama. Obviously, you can call us what you want, a fringe group.
Are they prescribed here?
Pardon me?
Are they prescribed here in America?
They're a terrorist organization.
Yeah, I would look.
In the United States.
You can label this as a terrorist organization. If you've seen the rhetoric of the Muslim Brotherhood, it's horrific. I mean, whether it's comments around 9/11 or other comments that the Muslim Brotherhood has produced, it's insane. And it's something that came up during the 2008 presidential election with President Obama. But here we are today in 2026, and you're seeing in New York, for example, this week, members of Congress, or at least candidates who won the Democrat nomination for Congress, who are running on a communist platform. You have one individual who said that she would wipe her hands with the American flag. You had another person who was essentially praising what occurred on October 7th. Another person who didn't condemn, almost applauded what happened on 9/11. So I think what you're seeing here is really a concerning element taking place in the United States. And obviously you've been seeing that in the UK as well. And the values of these countries need to stand strong. Political parties need to do their part. The sad truth for the Democrat Party is that the communistic, socialistic arm of that party has taken it over. That's a real challenge for the Democrat Party right now.
The Muslim Brotherhood is partly prescribed in the United States. There's specific branches are prescribed, including the Lebanese Muslim Brotherhood, the Egyptian and Jordanian branches, and the Sudanese branches as well. Just makes me laugh. The United States can prescribe the IRGC, I think it was in 2020, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the Muslim Brotherhood. In the UK, I mean, is the IRGC prescribed yet? Or not? Are we still waiting? Because Labour were banging on about it for 4 or 5 years straight in the Commons when they're in opposition. Yvette Cooper getting up to the dispatch box, David Lammy saying, as soon as we get into power, we will prescribe the IRGC. It's absolutely lambasting the Tories about it. I showed clips week after week, and as far as I can see, they've still not done it. This is what Nigel Farage has to say on prescribing the Muslim Brotherhood in the UK.
All across the Middle East, countries have banned and prescribed the Muslim Brotherhood as a dangerous organisation. We will do the very same.
So, Rano, what's Labour's issue? Why are they so slow to react to the IRGC, the Muslim Brotherhood?
Well, I mean, first of all, I should say that for believers of free speech, and believe me, I'm not going to defend them, but I do think it's important to put the context. Defenders of free speech, we do have to be really careful around what we find distasteful and disrespectful, but should still be permitted in a society that believes in free speech, and those views that are simply so abhorrent and incite violence and terrorism that therefore they should be prescribed. And there are therefore very strong tests that have to be met. That's why Labour attacked us when we didn't take action on certain things. And it's the hypocrisy that has jarred with people in this current administration. I think everyone's hoping for clearer action under the new Labour administration from the 20th of July. But, you know, the IRGC is simply a terrible organisation. We've seen what they and others in Iran have done to wonderful Iranian people who would love to go about their own lives, many of whom, absolutely deplore the regime. The British government should indeed take action there. But really interesting to see the support for banning the Muslim Brotherhood too. And I think the British government should actually review its procedures and policies on this. The Tamil Tigers were a terrorist organisation. They invented suicide bombers. They invented child soldiers. And the British government never actually took the action that was required against them either. So I think the British government has a long history of this under all political parties.
So some examples of the rhetoric from Muslim Brotherhood in yesteryear. In 1991, an internal document from the Muslim Brotherhood outlined a strategy in North America of, quote, eliminating and destroying the Western civilization from within. I mean, goodness me. That seems to be coming to fruition right now. Just look at what's going on. Others, the Muslim Brotherhood's influence on Hamas, the Palestinian branch, the original charter of Hamas in 1988, quoted its leader as saying, Israel will exist and will continue to exist until Islam obliterates it. Some leaders have expressed hopes for Islam to conquer Europe and America through dawah, which is preaching or other means. It goes on and on. Others said that the Jews are a societal cancer. Laurie, why did Obama invite them to the White House? What was that? I'm not sure on the specifics.
I don't know the specifics either of what you're talking about, but I will say that if we're going to go down this route, I was on your program and everyone here was lauding this visit by the Syrian president al-Ashra, who was the leader of Al-Qaeda and
Jelani,
the Al-Nusra fund program that is like a spin-off of Al-Qaeda. There was a $10 million bounty on his head from the State Department and their department's Rewards for Justice program, your former boss's State Department. So, yeah, so if you're going to say that about Obama, let's say that about this gentleman coming to the White House. And I say that because this is how the world works. This is how the United States either deals with allies or adversaries. The world is actually quite small. These people are in small circles. When you're in terrorism, when you're leading countries that are, as you call them, third world countries, they are oftentimes operated by shady actors, etc. And we have seen time and time again that either the people elect them or they come into power on their own through authoritarianism, communism, whatever. Yeah. And this is not the first time that this has happened, and it won't be the last either.
Yeah, I wasn't a fan of Jelani coming into the White House either. I think Trump tried to charm him with his aftershave, didn't he?
Yes, he tried to give him perfume and said, oh, how many wives do you have? Yeah, it was a...
Right, the Obama administration has commented previously on the Muslim Brotherhood. We'll bring you their comments shortly, but more coming up on the show, including this in the next hour.
And I'm especially pleased to say that, likewise, religion is back in our country, bigger and stronger than it has been in many, many years.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good morning. Welcome to your latest GB News weather update brought to you from the Met Office. The final hot day across eastern areas of England, much fresher further west with outbreaks of rain and showers, particularly across the northwest. It will be dry for many southern areas of the UK through much of the day, but there is a risk of some thundery showers across more central and northeastern areas of England into this afternoon, and then in the southeast later on this evening. We do still have an extreme heat warning in force across eastern areas of England, so although temperatures are not quite as high as they have been through this week, we're expecting some further impacts. Highs of 33 degrees possible in parts of the southeast. Elsewhere, much closer to average, the high teens, low 20s, but still in the mid-20s across central areas of England. So still a pretty hot day for these areas. Outbreaks of rain will affect parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland through this evening, particularly for more western areas of Scotland. We're not expecting as much thunder and lightning than we did see yesterday for these areas, but still some quite heavy outbreaks, some gusty winds too for Northern Ireland as well. Much drier for northwestern England, southeastern Scotland as well. Temperatures in the mid-20s to end the day on Saturday, so still pretty warm out there. Strong sunshine into the late evening. Very sunny for parts of Wales, the southwest of England, but it's across the southeast where we could see some thundery activity through Saturday night into Sunday. It may remain offshore. We may just see lightning out off the coast, but we could see some heavy downpours and possibly some hail. Another very warm night across eastern areas, Saturday night into Sunday. Across the west, though, it will turn much fresher as this weather front pushes eastwards, introducing much fresher air. So a much more comfortable night for more western areas. Still temperatures in the 20s, though, across the southeast to start the day on Sunday. But this weather front will push eastwards through the day, introducing that fresher air more bodily across the UK through Sunday. So a day of sunny spells, a few showers around as well. And for everywhere, it will be feeling much more pleasant with temperatures in the low 20s. Bye-bye.
Today, clouds overhead. Total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Cates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Bold. They are under no illusion. Ray, are you a human trafficker? Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get this on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines. The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it? From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What I'm going to do now is they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christys tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From cold mornings
to warm family brunches.
From football to tennis in the car.
In the kitchen.
GB News Breakfast is there. With the stories you need and the conversations that matter.
Anyway, let's talk business.
Well, it has been a historic night in British politics.
It's astonishing, isn't it?
We're here again.
To start your day just right. GB News Breakfast.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I ever got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Some people enjoy lazy Sunday mornings, but not me.
What's the truth of the matter? So that's a very live question. Would you support him if he waters down these plans?
Before the spin sets in, I'll be getting to the truth.
This is personal.
No soft questions, no easy answers.
It's one thing if the state has rules in this country. It's another thing whether the police and others actually police them.
Setting the agenda and holding those in power to account.
You can't really blame her if the system is set up this way.
You will not want to miss it, trust me. The Camilla Tominey Show, Sundays from 9:30, only on GB News.
Hello, good morning. Happy Saturday. Live from Washington, D.C., this is GB News with the stories shaping Britain and America. And breaking right now, open your homes. The government is preparing a Ukrainian-style sponsorship scheme that could see thousands more migrants brought to Britain from global conflict zones. It seems these warnings, this one right here, are just being ignored.
You've allowed millions and millions and millions of people to come into your country that shouldn't be there. And by the way, that's all over Europe. Europe is a different place.
And yeehaw, Texas takes the Bible to school. Millions of public school students will be required to study Bible stories under major new curriculum changes. Good idea? Elsewhere, justice for Charlie Kirk. The man accused of assassinating the Conservative activist could still face the death penalty after a judge rejected an attempt to have it thrown out. And Labour's defence gamble. Sir Keir Starmer, yep, still our Prime Minister for now. He's pressing ahead with a military investment plan despite warnings it leaves Britain exposed. So why is Britain's lame duck leader saying this?
For this Parliament, £270 billion spent on defence. That's the sort of money that's never been spent before.
Hello, I'm Ben Leo, and this is The Late Show Live. Good morning, happy Saturday, happy weekend. England play Panama in their World Cup clash in New York a bit later today. Looking forward to that. Elsewhere, let me know what you're up to this weekend. gbnews.com/your say. I hope the weather's calmed down a bit. I was looking at pictures back home from my family, absolutely sweltering in the back garden. I think my wife went and bought a paddling pool for the kids, which was fun. Anyway, in DC this evening, my panel, Democrat strategist Laurie Watkins and former Chief of Staff to Marco Rubio, Matt Terrell. And in London, former Labour advisor Matthew Torbett and the former Conservative Minister, Sir Ranil Jayawardena. Thank you for your company once again. Right, breaking news just in. The Texas State Board of Education has approved a major overhaul of its English curriculum, requiring pupils to read a series of texts that include Bible stories. The changes will affect more than 5 million public school students, with Texas becoming the latest battleground in a wider conservative push to bring Christian teachings into America's classrooms. The selections include a children's retelling of David and Goliath for younger pupils and Bible passages about Adam and Eve for older students. The move follows a law introduced last year requiring the 10 Commandments to be displayed in every public school classroom all across Texas. President Trump spoke a little bit earlier about what he sees as a renewed interest in religion.
And I'm especially pleased to say that, likewise, religion is back in our country, bigger and stronger than it has been in many, many years. Been reading all of those reports. Religion's really, it's going up. If that were stuck, we'd be very, very rich, all of us. It's been great to watch. And as I've said before, to be a great nation, you have to have religion and you have to have God in your nation. If you don't have that, it just doesn't seem to work out, does it? And we have it. We have religion and we have God now.
With me now is the Chief Exec of Teacher Freedom Alliance and former Oklahoma State Superintendent of Public Instruction, Ryan Walters. Ryan, good to see you. Amen. Hallelujah. Good move or not?
Huge move. We've got to get the Bible back in the classrooms. We saw this in Oklahoma. We did this 2 years ago. The radical left has tried to purge any talk of the Bible, any talk of the Christianity that helped forge this country out of our schools, to push left-wing indoctrination, to turn our kids against our countries, against our families, to institute wokeism in the classroom. And so you've got to get it back in the classrooms, fighting back against the teachers' unions, the radical left, Marxism. President Trump has been on the front lines of this, and we've got to get our schools back on track. It starts with teaching truth, and the reality is the Bible played a major role in Western civilization. Our kids need to know that.
Okay, yeah, I agree with you. Some would say, though, well, why not Islam? Why not dish out the Quran and make people read Islamic texts from the Quran?
Yeah, well, Islam didn't play a major role in forging America. That's just fact. So you go back to our history, you look at our Declaration of Independence, you look at Western civilization. It was a Christian faith. It was the Bible. It was a major emphasis of Christianity throughout our nation and throughout the history of Western civilization that forged this country, our institutions. You can look at it throughout our nation's history. It was the Bible that played that major role throughout American history.
Okay, some people watching this, I mean, me included, they'd call proper Christians who go to church, read the Bible, pray every day. I think they hate this description because they don't like people being half in or half out. But some people would describe themselves as sort of cultural Christians. What are the most important lessons we can learn from Christianity and the Bible and the 10 Commandments, which are being listed in classrooms all across Texas? What can we take from it?
Yeah, what we can take from it is, when our founders created American civilization, what they were looking at was how do you have a moral people that you can give over these rights to and institute these rights? And they said, listen, the rights came from the Bible. There's natural law. You can look back to the English civil law and look at where those came from. They were instituted from an understanding of natural law that come from the Bible. And so when you're looking at America, whether it's teaching American history, the history of Western civilization, literature. You just look at modern themes throughout literature, throughout our nation's history, your nation's history, and those are so often tied to those biblical principles. So when you look at a moral code that people live their life by, it was the Bible. That doesn't mean everyone has to be a Christian by any means. You know, everyone's up to their own decisions with their faith. But when you look at history and you look at those themes, they come from the Bible.
Yeah, indeed. I'll go back to the cultural Christian point. If you're not a sort of die-hard Christian, you know, the Bible, at least Christianity, offers many, many benefits and, you know, good tips, if you call it that, to live your life. Finally, Ryan, who's the catalyst for this religious resurgence of Christianity? Who's behind it?
Hey, look, you know, I think there's several things you can point to, but President Trump's been very clear about that. We've got to get back to understanding American history. We've got to get back to understanding, you know, what made America great, what made America exceptional. Of course, a biblical worldview is a huge part of that. So President Trump leading the charge there. You also look at just Christians throughout America who have woken up to the attacks from the teachers union, from attacks from radical Marxism that has plagued this country. And they've said, listen, we've got to get back to understanding our roots, understanding what made Americans and Western civilization different, unique, and the Christian worldview was a major part of that. President Trump deserves an immense amount of credit for literally taking the bullets to get America back on track, to make America great again, and he has been willing to stand firm in that, and Americans have rallied to that. This has been something they've demanded out of their elected officials for decades, and President Trump has been the one to bring it to fruition and stood firm.
Is this attack on the Western civilization, the sort of culture wars, is it really, at the sort of genesis of it, is it a spiritual war, Ryan?
It absolutely is a spiritual war. You can see the left has been on the forefront of this battle for a long time. They have wanted the cultural Marxist right to enter into classrooms for as kids as young as kindergarten and pre-K. They push transgenderism. They push this woke theory onto our kids, onto our country. We've seen the effects societally, as you pointed out. Just even folks that are kind of cultural Christians have watched this decay. And so what they have seen is we want to go back to a time where Christianity is respected, is back in the forefront, is understood as part of the culture. And so, yes, absolutely, President Trump has a lot of, deserves the credit for this. And Americans have really woken up to what it looks like with a country that's been at war with Christianity. They want to go back to a time where it's respected and people that practice it are respected as well.
Yeah, well said. Ryan, thank you so much. Really loved having you on. Ryan Walters there. Please come back on the show when you can. Thanks, Ryan. Right, let's get the thoughts of my panel. Laurie, Matt, and Saranil Jayawardena. Laurie, what about Charlie Kirk? How much influence did he have on the sort of resurgence of Christianity, do you think, since he was murdered, I guess, when was it, September last year, and even before that?
I don't personally know. I have no idea. From what I saw, he had a great effect on especially younger people, those on college campuses, etc. And Turning Point America had a lot of members, or still does. I was not a follower of hers. I have no idea what Matt to do.
Enormous impact, particularly on young Americans. I mean, what you're seeing right now in the polling is that more young Americans are choosing to go to church. Embracing faith. And so, look, I think what you're seeing right now...
about what that other guy said then.
Yeah, so I think what you're seeing, though, here in Texas is, look, President Trump, at the beginning of his term, said that he was going to dismantle the Department of Education in Washington, give more rights to the states. And I think you see Texas embracing that. And look, obviously there's no questions. We're on America 250 here, the anniversary, the birthday of America on July 4th. We're reminded that our founders did embrace faith. If you look at the Declaration of Independence, our documents of the founding of our country, faith, God, were centered to that. But beyond that, I think part of this, I suspect, for many people, particularly in Texas and nationwide, for many parents, is they felt under President Biden that they were under attack. They felt like Christians were under attack. They also felt like there was too much DEI in our school systems. Take Texas, for example, in Austin, Texas. Under President Biden, you had a 4th grade teacher who read a book called, I believe the title was Call Me Max. It was a book about an individual's transgender journey. Many parents view that book was not appropriate for a 4th grade teacher to read to students. Now, look, people have different views on this. I'm just telling you right now, I think many parents are reacting to the Biden years where you had that kind of activity taking place in our schools, such as it took place in Austin, Texas. It took place in other schools around the nation. They feel as though President Trump is standing up for parents, and I think it's a big part of this. It's not just religion. It's about what are we teaching our schools? What are the values that we're teaching our students? You cannot ignore that the founding of our country, religion was there. But you also can't ignore what was done under President Biden with what many would call a DEI system that many parents were not satisfied with.
Yeah, I think Biden as well turned Easter Sunday at the White House into Transgender Day of Visibility, which, I mean, it's demonic behaviour. I mean, just absolutely demonic. So, Ranul, do we need to maybe think of doing the same in the UK? I think Department for Education guidance and the curriculum for religious education classes includes sort of studying Islam, visits to mosques as well, so on and so on. But do we need a more heavier focus on Christianity, Sir Ranul?
Well, I'm pleased to report that actually the Education Act from 1944 says that every child should have collective worship daily, and that in large part that would be with the Christian faith at the heart of it, given the, well, first of all, the huge number of schools that are actually run by the Church of England or the Catholic Church in this country, and secondly, through local authorities that would also believe that is the correct policy for their schools. But I do think, it is right that parents should always have their rights protected as well. And so, of course, parents under that 1944 Act, and indeed today, should, of course, also have the right to withdraw their children if they see fit. But I think we should absolutely lean into this agenda, making sure that people understand why certain things are the way they are in this country. The values that we hold dear do come from the Christian faith that has been part of this country's history, and indeed much of the Western world's history down the generations.
Yeah, Matthew, my boy goes to a Church of England school. It's great, really great school. I went to a CV school when I was a kid. Used to love hymns. We'd come in every morning, sit down, we'd sing some hymns, sort of Bible passages here and there. You go to church and so on, obviously nativities as well. But somebody on your say, Linda, has said, I'm afraid the Church of England are not Christians, or they don't behave like it. I'm not privy to why that may be. What do you think that means, Matthew?
Well, despite me having a biblical name, I'm not very religious, and therefore I don't know what that means. I think I hear what Ranul's just said. I think the only issue I would have with it is if parents are choosing to pull children out of this. When I went to school, we were going back 25, 30 years ago when I was at primary school, but we had a Jewish head teacher that would do things like we would sing hymns in assembly and whatever else. And I think the only way we learn about each other as a society is by learning about each other's differences. So I've got no issue if 1 week we're doing Muslim week and we're reading passages from the Quran, or another week we're reading from the Torah or whatever else. And I think if you're pulling your child out because they are of a religious denomination that isn't what is being read that day, well, you're sort of keeping them a little bit sheltered, and also saying, well, my God is better than yours, which has, caused wars since forever as well. I think we could all learn from that. But in principle, I have no issue with people reading the Bible. If my child goes to school and they read the Bible, so be it. The Ten Commandments thing as well, I think, is interesting, because as much as I'm not religious, I think it can provide a sort of backbone for life, the idea of treating people with respect, charity. I don't know whether don't covet thy neighbour's oxen really has much to do in our current society, but, I think in principle the idea of treating people well is fine.
Matthew, you're about to be, I hope you don't mind me saying, I think you've talked about it on air, you're about to become a father. Congrats to you. You're going to have a whale of a time. That's an understatement. Would you be happy for your 7-year-old child, when it comes to it, to go to a mosque, take off their shoes, get down on a prayer mat, pray, be read lines from the Quran? Would you be okay with that?
Yeah, I'd be astounded if he doesn't. His grandma is Indonesian, she is Muslim. he will no doubt find out about all the different parts of who he is. You know, he'll know all about Stockport County because he'll have no choice in what football club he's supporting. And he'll know, you know, my partner went to Crown School when she was younger. She doesn't really practice as a Muslim, but is respectful of her mother's background and where she comes from. So he'll know all the different facets of where he's from. And I'd encourage him. The school should take him to the synagogue, should take him to the mosque, should take him to the church and learn about life.
Yeah, I have to disagree. I mean, you know, each to their own, but I wouldn't want my child going into a mosque and praying.
That's why your child goes to a Christian school, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, I wouldn't want my child being indoctrinated with some of the aspects of
parents
Islam.
should be putting their kids is in religious schools if they want religion taught.
Interesting. So Ranald, should Bible studies, Bible classes be mandatory in the UK, do you think, regardless of the school?
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to see the 1944 Act implemented properly and enforced properly, which would mean that is the case. I think there's been a lax interpretation of those rules for a long time, and so I think it's important for people to understand, as we've just discussed, why the values of this country are the way they are, the things that have shaped this country over hundreds of years, and indeed shaped so many other countries around the world, including the United States. And I think people talk about morality. You know, morality comes from somewhere. It's not innate, in my personal view, in any of us. It's something that is taught to us by our parents and by society, and that has come historically from religion. So, and indeed, I would just make one defence. It comes from many religions, not just Christianity, and I think that's an important point to make too.
Yeah, but I think some clearly are more compatible with the West than others. Let's just say that.
Different religions have different perspectives, absolutely. But I do think that those the points about morality are in many faiths around the world, and so I do think it's important to say that there is merit, as Matthew said, in people understanding that other faiths can also provide good moral teaching.
Sorry to interject. Is it moral to stone your wife if she cheats?
No, look, I'm not going to be here to defend particular bits of different texts. That's not what I'm here to do. But what I am here to do is to say that, quite. But what I am here to do is to say...
It's a valid question.
But what I'm here to do is say that there is good morality. There are principles in all sorts of religions: Buddhism, Hinduism, Judaism. So yes, you can focus on Islam, Ben. Of course, that is your right. We do believe in free speech on GBNews. But there is.
Well, I'm not aware of any other religion that advocates stoning wives for cheating. That's all, or chopping hands off.
You've made your own point in your own way, Ben.
Yeah. Matt Terrell, do you think the government here, President Trump, could expand this Texas move federally, nationally?
Potentially. Look, but I think at the same time, President Trump has been working to dismantle the Department of Education, as I said earlier, in Washington. I think more states will pick this up. What you see in the United States is states are the laboratories usually for other states to do things. So what happens in Texas may be picked up in Florida, Alabama, Wisconsin. I mean, what we'll see. It probably is more likely red states, conservative states, I should say, are going to be the ones that pick this up. But look, I think there's without question that this is just a pushback in many ways on where we were under President Biden. Yeah. People have to remember where we were. You had activities, books being read in these schools that were, in many parents' views, highly inappropriate. Okay. Should have never been done. This is returning values and making sure our kids are educated in the proper way. Is how many view this.
Okie doke. Amen. Amen, sister. To you, Matt Terrell. Right. Thank you, guys. Appreciate the conversation. Still ahead tonight on The Late Show Live.
Our adversaries don't follow timetables set by the Treasury.
I left because I could no longer ignore the continued failure to address the treatment of our veterans in Northern Ireland.
Well, it's been a bruising few weeks for the government on defence, but after 2 ministers walked out, the Prime Minister has somehow found an extra £1 billion for the armed forces down the back of the sofa in number 10, I suspect. But is it just too little, too late? This is The Late Show Live. Back in a sec. Well, talking of Charlie Kirk, the man accused of assassinating him could still face the death penalty if convicted of aggravated murder. That's according to a Utah judge who's ruled today. Tyler Robinson, the defendant, is charged with murdering the Turning Point USA founder outside a campaign event in Utah last September. We all remember that day. I certainly do. His lawyers argued prosecutors should lose the right to seek capital punishment after allegedly breaching a court order by publicly discussing the strength of the evidence. It was a big contempt of court row, but the judge agreed the prosecutor had crossed the line, but ruled that removing the death penalty would be a disproportionate sanction, ordering prosecutors instead to pay the defence's legal costs. But with me now is producer at the Charlie Kirk Show, Blake Neff. Blake, good to see you, my friend. What do you make of this ruling today? Luckily, the defendant in this case, Tyler Robinson, could still face the death penalty if convicted. What's your thoughts?
Precisely. For me and all the other people with the show who knew Charlie, what we care about is seeing justice done in this case. And it's a high-profile case. In any capital case in the United States, the defense team throws absolutely everything they can against the wall. We've already seen signs of that. And I think this was responsibly handled by Judge Tony Graff. He's the judge who's been handling this case in Utah. And they've brought a lot of objections. They tried to keep cameras out of the courtroom. They've tried a bunch of maneuvers. And this is the latest one. They wanted to hold, as you said, they wanted to hold them in contempt. And what it was, this is, unfortunately, I have to blame you guys a bit. This was a headline in the Daily Mail. The Daily Mail had a headline that basically said, the ATF, Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms here, they did analysis on bullet fragments taken from the shooting to see if it matched the gun allegedly used by Tyler Robinson. And what they found was that it was inconclusive. And that just means it could work with the gun, but it's not proven that it was with that gun. That's not surprising because the bullet had fragmented and been damaged, and sometimes you're just unable to do that. And that was carried by a lot of people who, frankly, I think are getting whipped up into conspiracy theory stuff and the like, to say it's confirmed this bullet doesn't match. And all this prosecutor did, I don't think they were trying to engage in contempt, but they came out and they just pushed back and corrected this misconception. But the judge said, you're not allowed to do that. We're going to hold you. They hold you in contempt, but it's a minor contempt where it's going to affect jury selection. They're going to have to make sure they don't get jurors who were affected by that. I don't think that's going to be a big deal because I don't think it was widely covered that this person had said this. And what matters here is, yes, they keep the death penalty on the table. They're certainly keeping life in prison and other justifiable punishments on the table. And we're headed towards a key week of preliminary hearings about a couple weeks from now. And I think, speaking for myself and many others, we're looking forward to that because we want the world to see the extent of the evidence that is available in this case.
Yeah, Blake, do you mind me asking what you, Charlie's friends, his colleagues, the family and so on, are you seeking the death penalty? Would that provide some, I know Charlie, nothing can ever change what happened, but would that provide a slither of justice?
I don't want to speak for anyone else. I believe it would be a justified penalty. Erica herself, she forgave Tyler Robinson when she was speaking at his memorial, but that's not to say that he shouldn't be punished. What we believe that the job of punishing criminals is the job of the state. We're not in Saudi Arabia or one of those countries where we have these clan-based justice, this individual vengeance-based justice. We don't believe in that. We believe the state enforces its laws against evildoers so that that moral responsibility is not on the individual. So it actually isn't our call what his punishment will be. It is the state of Utah which is punishing it, and I think they're justifiably seeking it because this was a heinous murder. We have to have an absolute zero tolerance position against politically motivated assassination, because if that is allowed to flourish in any way whatsoever, it's not just going to mean people being killed. It's something that endangers your entire system of government, your entire society.
Yeah, and free speech, of course, the fundamental point. It threatens the very existence of that. Blake, you mentioned there Erica's words at the memorial last year. I had the privilege of being there. It was one of the most extraordinary events of my life, and I've said many times on this show, I'll say it again, I felt the Holy Spirit during that event. It was just incredible. Erica said she forgives Charlie's killer. If Tyler Robinson is found indeed to be his killer, would you forgive him in the same way Erica did?
I mean, the Bible calls for us to love our enemies and forgive those who persecute us. Christ himself, he forgave the men as they were putting him to death. Forgive them, Lord. They know not what they do. And I have to believe, I do believe Mr. Robinson is guilty, and I have to hope that he was a very troubled man. You can go look up what people who knew him have said, some of the people who are in his Discord groups or who knew him, his relationship with this Lance Twiggs individual. He seems to have been a very troubled man. I hurt for his family. His family seemed to be basically good people, but sometimes individuals go awry. I think he did a very evil thing that caused tremendous harm in the world, but I can't hold permanent hate for him in my heart because that's not what we are called to do.
Yeah, I think he'll probably end up killing you as well eventually, one way or another, Blake. Just finally, we are sadly coming up to not too long the first anniversary of Charlie's murder. Just tell our viewers back home in Britain how much you miss him. What kind of vacuum has he left in your life?
What we've seen over the past year is we've seen what a tremendous person he was in both good ways and in bad ways. He all good ways from him, but that the loss of him, he was such an icon to people that we've seen a faith revival. I've spoken to individual people who have told me how they began going back to church because of Charlie's example, that they got involved in their community, got involved in their church, got involved in politics, started to speak up more because Charlie was such an inspiring example to them. People who never followed Charlie while he was alive, but they totally changed the direction of their life after he was killed because they finally took a closer look at what he was doing. We're also seeing how important he was in politics, though, in that Charlie was a great coalition builder. He was always focused on the end result. He was always focused on what can we achieve that is good right now. He tried to really dial back on any factional disputes. He didn't want conservatives in America, Christians in America, endlessly feuding with each other. He would always want the focus to be on the big picture. What can unite us? What can we do that is good? And I'll be frank, we've seen a lot of infighting within the movement. We've seen that Thomas Massey versus Donald Trump. We've seen some of the podcasters that have been much more critical of Trump. We've seen the division over the Iran conflict, the division over Epstein. And I genuinely believe that if Charlie were still with us, he would be doing tremendous work to heal those divisions, to keep them from spiraling out of control. He was a tremendous man in that respect. He was a tremendous man in so many respects. We all miss him as a friend. We all miss him as a leader. We all miss him as a role model. And every day we see the impact that he had on the entire world.
Yeah, well said, Blake. Thank you very much. And I had the privilege of meeting him when he came to London in May last year. It was great guy, just very sweet guy, and what a hero. Blake Neff, thank you so much. Appreciate you being on GB News and the Late Show Live. Thank you very much. That's Blake Neff, producer at the Charlie Kirk Show, which, of course, viewers and listeners, is still going, and it's a great show. And I encourage you, if you can, to tune in. Quick word from my panel, Matt Terrell. The death penalty still on the cards here. Good thing?
I think it's a good thing. You don't ever want to put anyone to death, but there are so many times, often too many times, where the crime is so horrific where that is a tool that may be used. It's be up to the judge, the jury, to decide what they're going to do here. It's up to the judge to do the sentencing, assuming this person is convicted, and I think this person will be convicted of this heinous act. But look, in the end, Charlie Kirk had a massive impact on our country, on our world. There's no question about that, and I think that he inspired a movement, and that's rare. It's rare today in this society for someone to inspire a movement, to lead a movement the way he did, and that's something I don't think will ever be replaced.
Yeah, I've been thinking about the death penalty a lot. I sound like a broken record. Viewers and listeners will know I talk about it quite a lot. And I was looking at a video today, Laurie, of somebody serving a life sentence. It was a camera from their cell just pacing around for 20 hours a day, nothing to do. And the caption on the video was, "This has to be far worse than the death penalty." Are you supportive of the death penalty?
I don't know how I feel about that anymore. In debate class in high school, that was one of the euthanasia, capital punishment. I don't know. I don't think I do anymore. I don't think I believe, even if it's the most heinous act, I believe that I actually believe that it's worse, like you were saying, to serve time in prison. But also, there have been cases where people's convictions have been overturned because of DNA evidence coming out. Or there was a guy that just killed himself in custody in Nevada. After 20 years ago, he killed his wife, pushed her out of National Zion Park, said she fell on a hike. 20 years later, they just put him in prison, and he killed himself because he knew that he couldn't stand to be in jail. Not everyone is like that, but a lot of people understand. You go into prison, like, you could die. Very bad things could happen to you. And if, I believe in people really thinking about what they've done, their crimes for a long time.
Yeah. Quick word from the chaps back in London. I mean, the death penalty, Matt Torbett, is being pushed. The conversation is being pushed by the likes of Rupert Lowe, who's stood up in Parliament, asked Keir Starmer if he's interested in bringing it back. Starmer said no. But there is a growing conversation, not least after the likes of Southport, after Manchester Arena bombing. It seems to be a conversation that doesn't sort of seem like ending anytime soon, Matt.
No, I think it's never really ended since it went away, actually, back in the 60s through the Private Members Bill. I totally get the argument, particularly in isolated cases, whether it be Ruda Bakana or others. There's the idea of, should we be paying as taxpayers for this guy just to exist? Should we not just kill him and whatever else? I'm not a proponent or a supporter of the death penalty. I think it isn't a deterrent. People still do awful things even though it is hanging over them. But, I can also see why people would want to see this guy go the way because of how Charlie Kirk was killed. So I totally get the argument, but it's not something I'm a supporter of. But you're right, I don't think it will go away for quite some time.
Yeah, I think actually from doing some research here in the US, it costs more. I was of that persuasion, Sir Ranald, saying, look, just kill Axel Ruda Bakana because it's going to cost taxpayers loads of money funding him in prison. But the truth is, when you're on death row in the United States, they're there for decades and decades and decades, appealing, lawyers. It costs far more money, campaigners argue, and I've seen the data,
than if they were just incarcerated.
Yeah, exactly, than to try and put them to death, Sir Ranald.
Yeah, I mean, look, that might well be true. I'd just say two things about this. I mean, the first is there have been miscarriages of justice in the UK and elsewhere. And, I just hate to be an MP voting to restore the death penalty in the UK, which then leads to someone who is innocent being killed by the state. I think that would be absolutely terrible. And second, I think fundamentally, we've just been talking about the Bible, we've just been talking about Christian faith, and the Christian faith says that every life has value, and it's a big decision for anyone, including the judge who'd have to impose that sentence, to sentence someone to death, which would be against potentially their faith.
Yeah, I had that Christian example in my mind as well. Why are so many sort of God-fearing red states all pretty much pro-death penalty? And I went to Bible classes here in DC to ask people about it, and I think their explanation is, maybe Matt Terrell, I don't know how versed you are in the Bible, but their explanation is that that thou shalt not murder isn't the same as the death penalty, which is basically it's punishment. It's an eye for an eye, Matt.
Yeah, I think many Christians view it that way. But look, beyond the faith component of this, I do think deterrence is a key point here. I think the death penalty, many would argue, is a tool that is used for very heinous acts. Where you're taking someone else's life, and it's a tool that's used for deterrence. And I always tell people, look, it's going to be judges and the sentencing that comes down on this, but do put yourself in the position of the Kirk family. This was your brother, your son, your husband. Obviously, I think many people have a different view on this, frankly. So whether people think it's good or bad, I don't think that's the debate. I think is this a tool that can serve as a deterrence? No question should be used selectively, I think. There's also no question that people have conducted such heinous acts where I think deterrence is warranted to ensure other people don't copy those acts, I think is the main thought process behind it.
Some quick thoughts on your say. Ice Cold Truth has said, if someone commits a crime bad enough to remove them from society, why should they remain there at the taxpayer's expense? Stu has said, Ben, Laurie's point makes sense from an American perspective, where their prisons are actually prisons. Ours are like a cheap trip to Butlins, and Butlins is like a leisure park. You know, it's like a working class leisure park, cheap holidays, maybe by the seaside, £9.99 if you read the Sun. And Pete Gardner has said, the death penalty is not meant to be horrible or worse than pacing around a cell for the rest of one's life. It is not revenge. It's to pass the person on to be judged by God. Yeah, there we go. Thank you for those comments. Appreciate it. And thank you, panel. Right, if you've been affected by anything you've heard in this conversation just now, Samaritans, the charity, are here day or night, 365 days a year. You can call them for free on 116 123. Email them at joe@samaritans.org. That's jo@samaritans.org. Or visit samaritans.org, the website, to find your nearest branch. Please get in contact if you are feeling that way. Right, let's take a quick look at some of the other main news stories here in America. President Trump's former National Security Advisor, John Bolton, has pleaded guilty to mishandling classified documents. I spoke to him about this very case and grilled him on it just a few months ago. Back in 2022, you said President Trump's the raid on Mar-a-Lago of the classified documents and the FBI raid, you commented at the time, John, saying that he's shown a disdain for the nature of classified documents. 3 years on, you're embroiled in your own classified documents scandal, if you want to call it that. Do you regret those comments, bearing in mind what you're dealing with now?
No, because I think the circumstances are completely different. I wish I could talk more about my situation. Unfortunately, it's not appropriate, but I think they're radically different than what happened at Mar-a-Lago.
Well, just to remind you, he has now pleaded guilty. Elsewhere, within the past few minutes, President Trump has posted the following on Truth Social. He said, John Bolton, a very dumb, unbalanced and unskilled former representative of the United States of America, just pleads guilty. He is a terrible person, a lunatic who only wanted to start trouble and wars, and who was a needless pusher of death and destruction wherever he went. Hopefully, he will be dealt with harshly. President Donald J. Trump. Say what you really mean, Mr. President. Elsewhere, in other news, TMZ claims to have received yet another email from the person claiming to know the identities of Nancy Guthrie's kidnappers. And this time he says he has a video of the main guy involved and Nancy the day she died. Nancy, of course, was the mother of American news anchor Susanna Guthrie. They have passed the information, TMZ, to the relevant authorities at the FBI. And finally, the United States military has conducted strikes on Iranian targets after President Donald Trump accused Iran of a foolish violation of its truce. That followed an attack on a cargo ship in the Strait of Hormuz. Right, still plenty to come on the show tonight, including this.
Well, that's the law. It's an international waterway. No country is allowed to charge tolls or fees on an international waterway.
Just been talking about it, haven't we? The United States strikes Iran again. Could this be the end of the truce? What about that 60-day sort of negotiating period? Are we going to be back on for violence and war? More on that in a second, but first tonight.
Our adversaries don't follow timetables set by the Treasury.
I left because I could no longer ignore the continued failure to address the treatment of our veterans in Northern Ireland.
After weeks of turmoil in the Defence Department, the Prime Minister is now promising an extra £1 billion for the military. But is it anywhere near enough? £1 billion. And we spend more on asylum hotels, I think. This is The Late Show Live. Back in a sec.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good morning. Welcome to your latest GB News weather update brought to you from the Met Office. The final hot day across eastern areas of England, much fresher further west with outbreaks of rain and showers, particularly across the northwest. It will be dry for many southern areas of the UK through much of the day, but there is a risk of some thundery showers across more central and northeastern areas of England into this afternoon, and then in the southeast later on this evening. We do still have an extreme heat warning in force across eastern areas of England, so although temperatures are not quite as high as they have been through this week, We're expecting some further impacts. Highs of 33 degrees possible in parts of the southeast. Elsewhere, much closer to average, the high teens, low 20s, but still in the mid-20s across central areas of England. So still a pretty hot day for these areas. Outbreaks of rain will affect parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland through this evening, particularly for more western areas of Scotland. We're not expecting as much thunder and lightning than we did see yesterday for these areas, but still some quite heavy outbreaks, some gusty winds too for Northern Ireland as well. Much drier for northwestern England, southeastern Scotland as well. Temperatures in the mid-20s to end the day on Saturday, so still pretty warm out there. Strong sunshine into the late evening. Very sunny for parts of Wales, the southwest of England, but it's across the southeast where we could see some thundery activity through Saturday night into Sunday. It may remain offshore. We may just see lightning out off the coast, but we could see some heavy downpours and possibly some hail. Another very warm night across eastern areas, Saturday night into Sunday. Across the west, though, it will turn much fresher as this weather front pushes eastwards, introducing much fresher air. So a much more comfortable night for more western areas. Still temperatures in the 20s, though, across the southeast to start the day on Sunday. But this weather front will push eastwards through the day, introducing that fresher air more bodily across the UK through Sunday. So a day of sunny spells, a few showers around as well, and for everywhere it will be feeling much more pleasant with temperatures in the low 20s. Bye-bye.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
To all of you who voted for GB News to win at the Trick Awards for the 4th year in a row.
The winner is GB News.
Thank you so much for voting for us. It's because of you that we're so proud to be the People's Channel, and it's because of you that we are Britain's news channel.
It's voted for the people who watch us.
Well, we've got the best viewers in the world, haven't we? The most loyal viewers.
Thank you.
Right, our highly esteemed, fantastic Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, is set to announce an additional £1 billion in defence spending next week as he attempts to bolster Britain's armed forces in what could be his final few days as Prime Minister. The long-delayed defence investment plan will be unveiled on Tuesday, with the new Defence Secretary, Dan Jarvis, promising to prioritise combat readiness, drones and autonomous technology all across the military. But despite the cash injection, defence sources have branded the funding a drop in the ocean, warning it barely dents a reported £28 billion funding shortfall facing the armed forces over the next 4 years. Laurie, you used to work at the Pentagon. Do you get the feeling the United Kingdom takes its defence responsibilities seriously?
I think that they are working towards an increase in all of the countries. This part I will agree with President Trump that, you know, our European allies should have increased their defense spending earlier than they did. This will benefit not just them, not just the United States, but their regional partners, etc. And because of what was happening with Russia attacking Ukraine, they saw that the enemy was at their doorsteps perhaps, or something similar could happen to them. And they made the right choice that, look, we need to be able to defend ourselves, especially when we have an American president now that is saying you're basically on your own, and has changed the game as far as military, financial, intelligence support to our allies.
Do you, would you give Trump credit years ago? Do you remember when he was sat down, I think it was the German congregation at some UN meeting, and he said, you guys just aren't paying enough, well, he said it many times, aren't paying enough towards NATO, you're still buying gas from Russia, you're still reliant on Russia, and you're also not coughing up when it comes to NATO. Can you agree he was right on that? I think it was maybe 8 years ago or something.
Well, that's what we're seeing them do now. So it took them a long time, but if they got there, then it's better for everybody.
Yeah.
You heard Mark Rutte talk about it, show that ridiculous chart the other day.
Yeah. So, Ranil, the defence investment plan is going to be unveiled on Tuesday, apparently. Is it looking like what you expected?
Unfortunately, yes, but that's not a good thing. I think we need to spend much more on our defence, personally, and I think John Healey did a very honourable thing in resigning because he felt so strongly about it. We don't see many resignations like that these days, so I think that just highlights how strongly he felt and the character of the man that he is. But I think the really important thing with this is, of course, there is a new administration coming in, and I do question whether it's right for an outgoing Prime Minister to try and lock in the policies on defence, which, of course, defence being the first duty of any government to protect the state from threats outside and within, will be something that an incoming Prime Minister will want to have a say about. So I think there are big questions for the Cabinet Secretary and others here as to whether this is the right thing to do.
Yeah, I think Matt Torbett, we're about to have our 7th Prime Minister in 10 years. I mean, it's embarrassing. How can you expect to get anything done for the future of the country? And yeah, whoever comes in now, on a wider point, is just going to be tearing up, well, Burnham is going to be tearing everything up, I suspect. And it's just insane. I mean, 7 Prime Ministers in 10 years.
Part of it is because we've had leaders that have made great mistakes. I don't buy a lot of this stuff that people say that we're ungovernable as a country. I think there are aspects of the public that there's a level of expectancy since COVID and furlough that any crisis the government must come to their aid, whether it be on energy crisis, cost of living, etc. I think you can put measures in place, but ultimately VAT, on businesses, hospitality, I get it and I support it, but ultimately there comes a point, welfare as well, the big elephant in the room. So I think, look at David Cameron. If David Cameron hadn't called the Brexit referendum, he'd have done another a term or two. If Theresa May had got a deal over the line, she wouldn't have gone or thrown her own majority away. If Boris hadn't broken his own COVID rules and, covered for Chris Pincher, he probably would have stayed another term or two. So these are, Keir Starmer, for one, he's not done anything wrong other than everything. There was no great scandal. He was just a very bad politician. And actually, this is the shame of this. I think it's quite spiteful to be looking at your own personal legacy rather than what is needed for the country's defences. And I think there's something a little bit poignant about his legacy being a half-baked defence investment plan that Andy Burnham's going to have to come in and go, OK, you've done half a job, I will now finish it, because it isn't enough, quite clearly.
Yeah, Keir Starmer, spiteful, never. Matt Terrell, I think it was Winston Churchill who infamously said, democracy is the worst form of government apart from all the others. And when you look at the UK, 7 Prime Ministers in 10 years, I mean, democracy, I would argue, isn't working. I mean, let's be frank, you'd be better with a dictator just pushing their agenda through as it stands.
Incompetence isn't working, and Keir Starmer's incompetent.
Ranil was shaking his head. I'll ask why you're shaking your head in a minute, Ranil. Matt?
Look, the truth is, this is, too little, too late by Keir Starmer. This is a drop in the bucket. And look, if you look at what's going on in the UK, it's very disturbing in terms of its military capabilities. Take the Air Force. The Royal Air Force is as small as it's been ever since the end of the World War II. You're seeing 2.3%, roughly speaking, GDP spending on defense. You guys should be at least 5%. You're seeing reports of basic training needs not being met because of where your funding is. That's a major problem. But beyond that, the other problem you have, and I don't mean to get off topic here, but it is illegal immigration. It's not just defending yourself from other countries in terms of their military forces. It's the fact that you've invited so many people into your country illegally. And that's a massive concern in terms of vetting, massive concern in terms of who's in your nation. So I think there's 2 different discussions to have. One is on defense spending, no question. The next Prime Minister is going to have to deal with the fact that Starmer did not do what he needed to do in terms of defense spending, and then illegal immigration. I think those are the 2 massive threats facing the UK. As related to Iran, look, I mean, the US wanted the UK to be a part of that campaign. We didn't need the UK to be part of that campaign. And that's the biggest challenge you have for your military forces. It's not as if you could have brought something in Iran, in my view, that would have made a massive difference in that campaign. That should be frightening to the people of the UK. You need to have a Prime Minister that's going to fund your defence at least 5%.
Yeah, and a good point about national security. I know for a fact counter-terror teams in the UK, they are struggling to keep tabs on, and MI5 as well, struggling to keep tabs on, terror threats, basically. Ranil, you were shaking your head. You didn't agree with Winston Churchill's quote, or did I get it wrong? Is that what you're shaking your head at?
Well, two things. First, a great opportunity for Andy Burnham coming in is to scrap the Chagos deal, saving between 35 billion and 50 billion pounds in the process, which would go on other things, including defence. But my point was actually your perhaps flippant comment that we'd be better off with a dictator, and actually the fact that Britain can change, the fact that Britain can change leaders shows democracy in action, and that's something actually we should be very proud of, even if it leads to instability in the meantime, which of course is not where we'd want to be.
Yeah.
Here, here.
Yeah, if any lefties are watching this and going to clip that up, of course it was tongue-in-cheek. I do not want Saddam style. They'll do it. They'll do it, Torbit. They'll do it. Watch it.
Important clarification.
Yeah.
Thank you for your attention in this matter.
There we go. Yeah. Right, let's bring you some breaking news. US Central Command has just released footage of their strikes on Iran. The US military had conducted strikes on Iranian targets after President Trump accused Iran of a foolish violation of its truce following an attack on a cargo ship in the Straits of Hormuz, courtesy of, I think it was the IRGC. No casualties were reported when the ship was struck by a one-way attack drone on Thursday, an incident that prompted a planned evacuation of thousands of sailors stuck in the region. Laurie, you have some thoughts on Iran this evening?
Oh, I was just going to say, yeah, I don't know why they decided to do this, but they said it was getting too close to the Oman side, so the Iranians did four, not just one, they did 4 one-way attacks. And what is very concerning is the attack prompted the International Maritime Organization, which is a UN agency, to suspend an effort to help hundreds of stranded vessels and maritime personnel get out of the Gulf region. We're talking months here. Since this engagement began, they have been running out of food. Their sanitation conditions are deplorable. Imagine being stuck on a ship that long, right, without the right provisions and such. So they were almost out, and now they had to basically shut that operation down and turn all of those vessels back again. So what a mess.
Yeah. Matt Terrell?
Well, first of all, vessels are moving through the Strait. On Wednesday alone, you had over 70 vessels move through the Strait. You have millions of barrels of oil moving through the Strait. Obviously, what Iran did here was stupid. Should not have done it. And look, you saw the United States react here. Do a proportionate response. But in the end, I think Secretary Rubio hit the nail on the head, effectively saying these are international waterways. He's right. Iran does not have the right to put in place tolls. Iran does not own these waterways. If the United States needs to step in further with military action here, they will. This country will. Whether that's with guiding ships through the Strait, which we've been doing before, whether that's with continued military action, which I don't think President Trump has any concerns doing, unless he has to do it. In the end, Iran needs to negotiate in good faith. They need to be responsible here and recognize the opportunity they have. And if they don't, I think President Trump will just go right back to military action. I know everyone keeps talking about the midterm elections come up. Hey, look, President Trump, I think, wants to win the midterm elections, but he wants to win this conflict. I think the United States is. You're seeing progress. I know it's hard to see with these headlines, but ultimately, I think he wants to win this at the end of the day, and I think we will.
Oh, I think he wants that stock market to stay high and the gas prices to stay low.
That's part of it. But even you're going to see ebb and flows here. You're going to see ups and downs. There's a reason why no U.S. president in American history for nearly 50 years took on this challenge. President Trump did.
Yeah, so, because they had more sense, for crying out loud.
Exactly.
Anyone that knew anything, anyone that knows anything about Iran, anyone that knows anything about Iran would have told you they will close the Strait, totally ratchet things up, and we'll all be worse off for it. Look, this isn't going anywhere, Ben. America lost, having seen the MOU the other week. They're continuing to lose. Iran hold the cards, and they'll close the Strait. We're all going to suffer in the meantime. And look, the previous deal took 20 months to strike, and at the minute, America is sending in bozos to a sword fight. They might as well have a rubber ducky or sausages. This is painful, the analysis here.
This is why it keeps going on. It's because you don't have professionals and experts at the table.
Yeah, well, exactly.
First of all, you just
they don't know what they're doing.
I'll make this quick.
They don't understand their.
Very quick. I want to move on.
Yeah, listen. You can call it sense in your opinion. I call it guts. You know, this president did the right thing. Iran has been a terrorist regime.
Look,
you can laugh all you want. The truth is, it's not Iran. Iran's been the greatest state spot.
I'd rather have a brain than guts. Give me a brain any day, any day of the week than guts, I tell you now. Brains are far more important.
I would love to continue this discussion. I have lots to say about the Iran conflict. I think they've messed up, actually, but the intentions were good at the start. And I just think of the Iranian people. They've been forgotten about. Trump says it was never about regime change. Oh, let's just forget the Iranian people then. Iran, as it happens, is playing Egypt in the World Cup in an hour. England are playing later today against Panama in New York. For now, sweet dreams, good night. Matthew, Serrano, Matt Terrell and Laurie, thank you very much for your company. And the viewers and listeners, appreciate you. I'll be in New York later tonight. You'll see me live. Will Kingston's hosting the show. Good luck, England. Enjoy the football if you're watching it. Until then, sweet dreams, good night, and I'll see you tomorrow. Goodbye.